Stonks.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Dialog Choices. We're not talking about Stonks. The bird's not here because he has like a brain infection and he's gonna die in 7 days.
But he's gonna be all right.
But only if he talks about Stonks.
But only if he talks about Stonks.
The curse of the GME.
We discussed we were potentially going to talk about the situation with GameStop, but because Bird was incensed about it, and I'm like, I probably need Bird to talk about this because I don't really fucking know what's going on that much. I don't understand stocks that much to begin with. But he's not doing so great because I think he has sinus infection that spread to his teeth, so now he needs a root canal. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Have fun.
That's bad.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I thought my week was going bad because my week is going bad. Not for any like channel related reasons, but one is we have an ant outbreak just throughout the house. Like just they're coming out of the walls. And it's like, what the fuck? Why we're like they're clearly like they must be living in our supports or some shit. I hate it. We're trying to use those little traps that they're supposed to like take the poison and be like, oh look, oh this tastes good, and they'll take it back to their nest and then poison their entire home. Which is a thing apparently that people have. I don't really care. They're ants.
I'm just kidding.
There's so fucking many of them. I assume they just blanket the entire surface of the state. And so
do they have wings?
No. They're just little tiny black ants. They're completely harmless. And you just every now and then have this weird, creepy feeling that something's on you, and you're like, go away. Just another rant. It's because you'll have like the lines, and that's where that are like going to certain spots and trying to get food. And those are where we put the traps. But you also just have like a thin dispersion of rando ants across the entire surface of the house, just exploring, trying to find new paths that they want to focus on and stuff like that.
They're the trash mobs of Keith's house. Just
I hate it. Around. Yeah, I have random fucking MMO encounters all over my house. It's the worst. But that's the less bad thing that's happening.
Oh no.
The much worse thing happening right now is that our boiler went out, and so we just don't have any hot water in the house. And so I've been dealing with just miserable showers where it's just like I can't do it. I have to be careful because I've had the mistake of taking like really cold showers in the past, and like my body will like kind of like the muscles will like freak out and seize up in response to like how cold it is, and like I'll hurt myself. Like my muscles will like
you'll get like cramps.
It'll be like when you sleep, like almost like when you sleep wrong, and then your fucking that muscle like in your neck or whatever is just ruined for the entire day, and it'll only seemingly recover when you sleep again tonight or whatever. Like I'll if the water's like ice cold because it is winter, that fucking ice water shower will have a similar effect where it can just like make something like get pulled or whatever the fuck in the wrong way, where I'm just like I just hurt for the rest of the day. I'm like, cool, get to deal with that. So
that that's where tubs come in handy.
Yeah.
Do you have a tub, or is it just a shower base?
I think I'd want to wash the tub more before I did that. Nobody ever takes baths here.
I don't take baths either, but like here in Europe is very common for basically you don't really have, well, you can have a shower base, but it's also very common for people just to have the shower in the tub.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of tub showers.
Okay.
But I wouldn't want to just go for it. I would definitely want to like clean the entire tub, and that takes a while because it hasn't really been used for that purpose. Instead,
are you inside the tub when you take the shower?
Yeah.
Or is it a separate?
But I'm just like standing in it. I'm not like filling it with water and being like, I'm just gonna lay in this, because you'll stand in the tub to take a shower.
I always thought that the bath, like even if the tub is like pristine, it's always less clean, right? If you want to really scrub yourself, like, you need a shower, right?
Yeah, I mean, in general, a tub just, it feels like it'd be unclean. I don't love the idea. I haven't taken a bath since I was like being bathed by other people as a child. Like,
really?
Yeah, I don't think I've been in a bath. I've been in a hot tub, but I've never been in a bath.
A hot tub is a less clean bath.
Well, yeah, but I don't go in a hot tub for the purposes of getting clean.
True.
I'm not like, this is what makes me feel clean today, a bath. But no, I've been doing something lately, though, that makes me feel much less clean, which is that I'm just using a washcloth to give myself what I assume is essentially like an old person, like, sponge bath.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I'll just be standing in the sink. I'll be standing in the shower, and I'll have the head pointed, like, kind of at the wall, so it's not just spraying me. And then I'm just fucking, like, using this washcloth and getting it wet, and then using that to bathe, and just getting it wet over and over again, and refreshing it, essentially,
to minimize the how cold it is.
Yeah, because it's incredibly less cold than standing in the stream of water. It's actual pain. Like, it's a horrible experience going into the cold shower. I don't know who the fuck thinks they're refreshing. They must have a different level of coldness they're dealing with, or they must be talking about they have a boiler and it still technically is hot water, but less hot water. That's what they call a cold shower. But, like, the boiler out cold shower is like an ice bath. I
went with cold showers, exclusively cold showers, for 2 years through my 20s. And my logic and my strategy was exclusively about screaming and just sort of like, while I was underneath the
You
shower.
would scream through the shower?
Oh, yes. Yes, because it's so cold. I mean,
why are you doing it? What I noticed is that my breathing freaks out. Like, I start gasping for air continuously, which I can only assume is like my body trying to regulate its temperature like a dog.
Yeah, that's why the screaming helps, because you force your lungs to do what you want them to do, and you also are more conscious about where the air is. So
I have several housemates with different sleeping schedules, so I can't scream my showers.
Yeah, you just need to be...
Not that I really want to live that life to begin with.
I'm imagining, like, medieval times, people would just scream all the time. Like, what a terrible
they didn't
world.
take baths. In medieval times, they didn't take baths.
But when they did, so there was, like, a bath day, and you knew someone was taking a bath because they're just screaming. You're like, well, there's Jim. He's taking his monthly bath.
I think a public bath, for example, that water, like, sits around a lot longer. It's not nearly as cold as plumbed water.
It is well known that people in medieval times only had a bath once a year, or maybe once a life.
Once a life? How long did you live? 10 years? What the fuck?
To be fair, rain happens more often than that.
You can't, like...
Yeah, but that doesn't count.
That can't be accurate.
It's something at that point.
It's something.
Your body can't handle that. Like, you need to bathe. No, it can't. We've seen it. Like, bodies need to be washed. If you don't do that, your hair gets bad, your skin gets bad. Like,
yes, they were peasants in medieval times. Yes, then they had, like,
you're telling me they couldn't go to a nearby water source and just sit in it? Like, that's a bath.
Well, yes, maybe people who live next to water sources would do that, but
every village was next to a water source. You had to be. What are you gonna do? Hike with your fucking gallon of water so you could not die that day?
No, you have springs. The number of springs that we have these days is way less than what you used to have back then.
And
like wells, you'd have springs and wells and like Noras and all the different engines that to bring water out of the ground. Like, it was very common for people to have drinking water, but not running water. Even running water, a lot of it is like small rivers that wouldn't really let you bathe. And besides, it was cold. Wouldn't want to do that. I'm just gonna stay cozy and dirty.
It's just miserable for a long time.
Yeah, it was like that. Like that's even like the stereotype of the medieval times. Everybody was dirty because, well, they weren't outwardly dirty a lot of the time, but yeah, they were dirty.
How are they not outwardly dirty if they hadn't bathed in if you don't bathe in a week, you're literally outwardly dirty. Like there's no way around that. Like that's I'm not gonna if you go to medieval times, someone's like, I haven't had a bath in 2 weeks, I'm quite clean. I'd be like, no, you're a fucking filthy piece of shit. Get away from me. What's wrong with you?
No, you would say, I have had a bath this month. I
would probably
clean.
I'd probably take a bucket and throw it on him. Like, get the hell out of here. What are you?
No,
what's wrong
the water
with you?
makes it worse. It's like the dogs. If dogs get dirty, they smell. Well, not dirty. Sorry, dogs get wet. Yeah, you shouldn't stand in the rain. It's just gonna make it dirtier because you're gonna smell after that.
Stand in the rain, like throw some water on a person, rub soap on their face. Done. All right.
Soap. That's rich people stuff. You would use cinder.
Stuff. Soap is like the most generic shit.
Not in medieval times. You would use cinder to wash yourself.
Because they were too stupid to know what soap was.
That's fair. That's a fair point. But they will literally wash with cinder. At least here in Europe, anyway.
That's an unfortunate
cinder. So you mean like You mean like ashes and stuff, right? Like
ashes and
burned,
stuff. Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah, but not like carbon. Just the the other one.
It's like a medieval. Yeah, it's like a dirt bath.
Yeah.
Like like a chinchilla.
Yeah, cats and dogs do that a lot as well. But the hygiene traditions of Europe were very, very bad. At the same time, Northern Africa people were relatively cleaner because they had not only did they use running water a lot more in terms of washing their hands specifically, which was not as common for Christians in Europe, but in the desert, they would use the sand, or the rough sand of the desert, to wash off grime and stuff, which European people didn't have as much. There was not much sand back in medieval Europe, so they couldn't take sand baths, which is literally what happens in North Africa. Still to this day with some nomadic people.
Sometimes you just don't got water.
Apparently,
you just use that sand.
You can easily make soap from potassium carbonate or like ash.
Yeah,
and
that's why ash works like that. But potassium wasn't introduced in Europe until the contemporary age. No, sorry, I think
it's
the 1600s.
Burnt wood ashes. What the fuck? They didn't have wood.
I'm pretty sure
the
they didn't have
medieval
potash.
times?
Potash comes from America, I think.
No, wood ash is just potassium carbonate made from burning wood.
I know, but like the invention of it, I don't think it's common. I don't think it's medieval in Europe.
Invention? It's just burnt wood.
It?
Like Earth invented it hundreds of millions of years ago. Like dinosaurs had potassium carbonate.
Dinosaurs had potassium.
I think you need to make it.
It's just like anytime a forest fire happens, you got half the fucking material to make soap there on the ground. Go pick it up.
Oh, there it is. So the word comes from 1477. So that should give you at least the word. It could exist before, but I am almost certain not in medieval times. The way they fertilized the land was
seashells. If you're by the ocean, just go grab some seashells. You can make potassium carbonate out of that. You can get seaweed is a good choice for oil. You can do come on, man.
I think it might be less that candles are hard to. I mean, candles.
Soap
is hard to make, and more that you just had to have the concept for it in the first place.
That's what I mean. It's like they're too stupid to know that there's like this perfectly good thing sitting here.
Yeah, 14th century is when it started. So I stand corrected. It actually existed in the medieval times, but just very late.
Very late.
What a sad time. Can you imagine someone like showed up and was like, oh man, there's just soap everywhere. We could have been bathing for months. And it's like, oh, come on, man. What the hell?
So what is bathing? No, I've been medievaling it up a bit. It's not a great time. I look forward to when our water heater is fixed.
I did it on purpose, and I agree with you.
Like you've confirmed that it is your hot water heater's like dead?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I'll get someone out there to replace it.
Well, the earliest they can be here is like Monday or something. Just living this life for now.
Tomorrow, then.
Yeah.
You could do you wanted to go really hardcore with it, you could
a water heater?
No, with bathing you can get a spray bottle.
Hardcore bathing.
Like go on Amazon. You could get a pretty good sized spray bottle. Go boil some water, pour it in the spray bottle, and then spray it on yourself.
Just mist myself with like one of those like things they use to like spread pesticides / water plants.
you could actually get one of those too because they come clean. You can get them and you just pump it up and then you pull the thing and it sprays you. Yeah. You could do that and like that would work. That would be a warm shower.
They sell shower in a can though. That's
shower in a can.
That's a thing. I think I don't remember where I saw it first. I'm looking it up. Shower.
What is anything?
Isn't that a SpongeBob meme?
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. You can buy it. It might be from SpongeBob though. The first image shows up. No. But shower in a can is apparently a thing. How do I use shower in a can? There's pages.
Is it just a bag of sand and?
When I'm looking online, it's like
you just scrub the sand into your skin.
It's basically like body wipes. Like, hey, here's a body wipe. Like, that's not a shower in a can. That's a.
What did you expect?
Don't flush them, or you'll make fat bergs.
Yeah,
it's like
what a horrifying concept.
Can you believe that? I live in medieval times for sure. Do you know how people are not supposed to flush their toilet paper?
Yeah.
I've always flushed my toilet paper. Never had any problems.
Yeah, most people do. Yeah, it's
everyone flushes their toilet paper.
Yeah, it would be great if we wouldn't do that.
For the first time in my 30...
Nobody wants to just have like paper covered in shit, like just in their house.
But for the first time in my 33 years of age of life, I have used toilet paper that isn't the cheapest one that I can get, and that thing nearly killed my entire life because I saw the water rise like, oh no, that thing is like really thick.
Yeah.
And when I opened the thing, whatever the tank is called, that did not go down as fast as it should have. And I was
Did you have yourself a little poop panic?
So
I had taken care of that already.
There's a really bad misconception, at least in the United States, is that the better quality your toilet paper, the less of it you're supposed to use.
Yes.
So like the nicer,
that is the advertised feature.
But the problem is people don't do that. Like literally, when I say less is more, I mean like it's not just you're not supposed to use higher quality toilet paper alone. You need to wet it and wipe your ass with it because you're only supposed to use 1 to 2 sheets at max. And that's it.
Yeah, that's what I found as well.
You wipe your ass with a wet piece for once, and then you wipe it dry with another, and that's it.
This is not the topic I was expecting today to have.
But Americans have the weirdest fucking thing about wet asses. We just don't allow it in our nation. We just will not tolerate a wet ass. And so, like, if you try to sell bidets, you try to sell like wipes or anything for that, it's like, no, that's gross. I don't want my ass wet. It's like you literally get your ass wet with poop water. Come the fuck on. Like, don't give me this shit. It's infuriating. You travel to like other countries, and they're like other countries that are like, yeah, this is a normal thing. What's wrong with you?
I support
like Japan,
the fight for a wet ass. Yes.
Japan has no issue with this. Every toilet just has a fucking bidet.
Wet ass.
It's
Japan you'll be pooping and your ass will be getting wet immediately.
I've never had a nicer time going
to
the bathroom.
You just get a wet ass jump scare.
It is so nice to use a bidet. It is the nicest thing imaginable because you go like, oh, I'm just done in like 30 seconds. You just press a button, wipe once, you're done. You move on with your life. You just like, sometimes you don't even have to wipe. Like, just sprays it all away, and you're like, that's it, great, fantastic. Like, wow.
Yep.
I don't know. Anyways, but the point I was trying to make is that so we have a problem where people buy these really nice toilet paper because they want their ass to feel good, which they don't realize.
That's not what toilet paper is for.
No, well, they don't realize that their ass doesn't feel good because they're wiping their fucking ass with paper, dry as shit. Which I don't know if you ever use sandpaper, but like same concept. And so they buy these really nice toilet papers, use like 6 or 7 chunks of them to try to get their dumb fat asses wiped, and then they throw it down the toilet and they flush. They're like, oh, it's not flushing. It's like, yeah. That's
well,
not
if it's
what
really
supposed
cheap
to do.
toilet paper, then
No,
it's
and that's
fine.
the thing.
But
If it's really cheap toilet paper, it dissolves in water. Like, it will just break apart in your hands while you're trying to wipe your own ass, and that's beautiful. That's what it's supposed to do.
No, it's
when
not
it touches
beautiful.
Water. Yes, because it's not.
it breaks in your hands.
Because
it's
that's
bad.
the point. The point
You
is that you're
touch
not
the poop
supposed to
with
be.
the hands.
No, it's fine because you should have already sprayed your butt, so there's no poop on there. You're just drying it.
I see what
Like,
the process is.
That's the
fine.
thing.
It dissolves in your hand, and it's beautiful.
It's dumb. I hate toilet paper in this stupid country. It's stupid. Dumb.
So now that we've had this very educational
people also don't know where it's
conversation.
made either, which is like why every time there's anything going on, people buy millions of it. So like, I'm not going to get any more. It's like, where do you think toilet paper comes from? The sky? It's not. It doesn't rain toilet paper. We make it here, like in hundreds and thousands of gallons of toilet paper.
The sky.
Like, well, like people act like,
forgotten.
oh, you're like the beginning of the pandemic. It's like, we got to buy all the toilet paper. It's like, why?
I had forgotten about that.
Did something happen? Did every single toilet paper factory in the United States blow up in one single time? Because I'm pretty sure we make like all of it here. It's like, well, it's coming from China. No, it's not. What we think we just put toilet paper on a boat surrounded by water to bring it here? What
is
the
that
fuck?
the reason? Is that the reason that they bought all the toilet paper?
People keep thinking that toilet paper comes from China.
That's incredible. Who thinks that?
I mean, at this point, it's safe to assume everything comes from China.
Well, but
It's
so expensive.
It's a pretty safe bet usually.
No, toilet paper is too expensive to ship overseas.
Yeah, because it's really
not worth
bulky.
the effort. Yeah,
and cheap.
And so like, it's deadly cheap. It's like apparently cheap. If you touch toilet paper once, you'll notice how it's not given any preferential treatment in its design. It is nothing but shit turned into square paper. And
but they put a pretty little quilt pattern on it.
There is, you just pull a fucking lever and it presses it in there. There's no like, so the idea of like, oh, toilet paper's gonna go out. It's like, no, how, when? It's like, I think at this point, I can't even confirm if there's people in toilet paper factories. I think it's mostly automated.
That's a good point, actually.
Robots.
Yeah.
Like,
They just have,
I don't think.
It's similar to carpet making and stuff, just in how it looks, but also in terms of maintenance. It's just easy. All you need to do is the water treatment, or not water treatment, rather the water disposal.
I'm at the point where I'm under the assumption that when humans die off, there'll be like a bunch of toilet paper still being made for like a couple hundred years, and then we'll just like we'll look like idiots,
Wally, all of a sudden, instead of going around with all the garbage, it's just going to be toilet paper. Wally going around.
So a good segue from talking about toilet paper and wiping your shitty ass is to talking about shitty opinions on things.
Hey, you're saying my opinion is shitty? What is this already?
Well, we haven't heard it yet, but let's go.
You're just jumping to conclusions.
I was not expecting the strong opinions about toilet paper podcast to happen, but here we are.
Here we are.
So Keith has fighting words for me.
I don't really have strong. Well. No,
Andrew also has fighting words.
I don't have super strong opinions, but there's two things that the audience pushes back on that you voice as opinions, and I find it curious. One is that you talk mad shit about Pathfinder Kingmaker, a game I do not have strong opinions on because all I did was play the prologue intro thing for a Let's Try once, and I mostly don't remember that, so it's not really important to me. But I think you mentioned it during a podcast or something at some point, like as an offhand comment. Mm-hmm. And so people were curious, what the fuck? The other one is just that I think you rank Outer Worlds as one of the best games of all time? Or one of your favorite games ever or something? And that's like an element of like, what? The disappointing New Vegas thing that was really forgettable? What's up with that?
Well, I'll start with Pathfinder Kingmaker then. So you were saying before that you played the first 2 hours of it. Was it 2 hours that you played?
I think it was. It might have been a 2 hour Let's Try.
It's the thing with that game is that it takes a little while for it to fully blossom. It's an interesting game because it's got so many things going for it, but at the same time, it's just executed in such a, I don't know. It's not. It's like they didn't fully think through all the decisions that they made, and it was like obvious early on. People were saying that the game was too difficult very early on, and they patched it into different, into more to have easier enemies and all that sort of stuff. But people were still complaining that they were basically getting their entire team wiped out by a kobold or something like that. And obviously, like if you have a team that isn't very good, it's a difficult game. I admit that right from the beginning. It's a difficult game in terms of like, because it's a party-based, top-down, real-time with pause kind of Dungeons and Dragons-y style game, like Baldur's Gate or something like that. It's very much inspired in that. But the problem for me with Pathfinder Kingmaker is the writing. So the thing with the beginning, though, is that you start the game and the game is telling you, oh, there's these lands that are very bad, and there's a lot of criminals in there, and oh, you're going to kill the criminals and all that. And then you have political allies and all that, and you just, oh, there we got our quest over here. And you go into the land and you kill the criminal, and doing that alone takes like 7 hours, and it's like this big quest, right? But then the game keeps going. There's another big quest after that, and it's not, not as well presented as that one is, as the beginning one is, because it doesn't have the same pump. It doesn't have the same sort of.
It feels like a show that was renewed for a second season.
I didn't think about putting it like that, but I think that's a good way to put it.
It's like, here's the plot we had. We ran out of that. Oh fuck, we've been contracted to make more story.
It's like sequels. Yeah, it's very much like that. I think, it's like they wanted to make all these games. They could have made Pathfinder 1, 2, and 3 and just decided you're going to make it all in one game, and none of them is going to be amazing. Because the story doesn't end. The game always has the pretense of wanting to go forward. And not just because it does go forward, but rather like you can imagine it, like you kill the first boss, and then you get captured into a dream, and there's this voice that says, "Oh, great things await you," and then you wake up, and then like there's this new friend that you have or something, and then the friend betrays you, and then there's a shadowy person behind that person, and then that person, you kill them, and there's another shadowy person, and then there's this fool that comes back from the dead. You literally
my machinations.
Seriously, it's so convoluted that it takes so long. It's such a long game as well, like easily 150 hours. I'm not exaggerating. If you play this game normally without cheating, because I had to cheat, I'll get to that in a little bit.
Oh yeah,
but
it sounds like it's staggeringly long, like even longer than Pillars of Eternity 2.
So much longer than Pillars. It's so much longer, seriously. Because the thing
is Andrew coming under fire?
Apparently, yeah. Jeez.
The thing is, I play, like, it took me, how many episodes did it take me to finish Pillars of Eternity 2? Maybe 120 hours with all the expansions. Let's put it more or less like that.
Oh my god, that's a lot.
Yeah, there's a reason why I've been putting it off.
I played the base Pathfinder Kingmaker game without the expansion, and it took me, I think it was 140 or something, 160, and I cheated the last few hours, because the last few hours are so difficult. The game gets so impossibly difficult at the end, because, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but the thing is, because it's such a long game, the story doesn't hold you, it doesn't grab you, because if you're playing for a few hours in a dungeon that takes forever, and then by the time you reach the end, you've forgotten like so much because you have to deal with so many enemies. Like, it's such a long drawn out game, and it has a story written as if it were like a short game of 20 or 30 hours.
But it's just like stretched. Also convoluted.
It's so stretched. It feels like I said it as I was playing it. I said that the main villain, which ends up not being the main villain, but no need to spoil too much. But the main villain doesn't feel like a main villain. It's like a side quest. It's like, oh, let's take care of this villain. And because the game doesn't have a quest designation for this is the main quest or this is the side quest or task. It's just quests that you do, and so you're left as a player to decide what is the main quest and what isn't. But that one villain that keeps showing up, then at one time isn't a villain, and then is a villain again, and there's like a on and on back, on and off sort of relationship. It just feels like a side quest, and then the game just, when you go for the last hurrah, the game goes to end, and you're like, oh, is this the end? No, the game has another villain at the end that you haven't heard of at all. It's the first time you hear of this person. Ooh. And it has a super pompous ending about, oh, we're not so different, you and I. I swear it has that. And it's like
one of my least favorite things in a story is when you introduce a new villain at like the last second.
It's
like
absolutely after the
Final Fantasy
impossible,
Type 0 sort of way.
After the impossible last boss fight that is absolutely impossible. I definitely could not beat any of that. I like the last probably I don't know. There were a lot of boss fights at the end, but I would say at least 10 of them. I couldn't beat them. To finish the Let's Play, I had to turn on God mode, and even that was difficult because just because you can't die doesn't mean you can damage the enemy. You know. So even then, I had to oh my God, it's such an impossible game. But for me, the biggest problem is the writing. It just feels drawn out and up its own butt. But it only shows at the end after you get past the beginning. So I can understand that people like it, but I don't know. I feel like if you're gonna have a writing that long, that drawn out, because then it's also big dialogues, because the game goes on and on. The dialogues, they last for a while, and they're so entranced in their own characters, and it's not even exposition. It's just them being themselves for a while, and you're stood there listening or reading it out loud, and it doesn't say anything. It's just completely forgettable characters. Almost all of them. So I went on a ramble.
Sounds very sad, and I would not touch this ever.
Well, it is it's everything you hate about video games.
Yeah, this is
yeah. It's not unredeeming. I think there are some things good about the game, but they need to trim the game so much because it's so clear that they had so many ideas for all these encounters that are super difficult. It's clearly a game made for people who know the system inside out. If you're a new player, you're gonna have a hard time. And I'm not a new player, and I couldn't beat the game. But they had all these ideas for all these encounters, and it's so much combat. It is unbelievable. So I don't know. Obviously I'm the only one of us three that play the game.
Yeah.
But so people, if I'm okay with people if I say if I say I don't like something,
you better play that game to defeat Colonel's opinions in the art of combat.
I don't challenge anybody to that. I'm just saying that just because I say something is bad, or it's just if I say I don't like something, it doesn't mean that I don't accept other people saying the opposite. But in this particular case, I have a thought out opinion. It's a game I finished and I was like, oh, that was a journey. Okay, well, that's the end of the Let's Play. But then it just stuck in my mind, and I just kept going back to it and thinking of all the things that it didn't do right. Like the companions don't have story arcs. There's no character evolution for any of the companions. They're just objectives that they have for their quests. You finish their quests, and that's it. They're okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're very nice. But they don't. None of your companions change.
Like they're random quest NPCs that happen to come with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Then the thing early on in the game, although that's mostly my fault, but early on in the game, I kept killing. I say kept. I think I killed 3 possible companions because of all the companions that this is my perception anyway. Of all the people that you find, some people sometimes will let you. Or some dialogues, rather, will let you attack them immediately because they're so bad, or because you don't like them, or because you want to steal their stuff. Some people happen to have that. And it happened that 2 of the companions that I found were really bad because they were just bad people. There's all sorts of alignments in the companion sort of roster of the game. And 2 of them that were actually ended up, I shouldn't have killed them, but 2 of them, I killed them because they were bad people, and the game gave me the option. I was like, I'm going to roleplay attack. And then I didn't have a person to help me with my finances because you manage a kingdom in that game. So because I killed the only treasurer that was available. So the game doesn't hesitate to put you in a position where you're going to lose or you're going to suffer very bad consequences, which I think is fun, but also at the same time, maybe that should happen after you understand the systems of the game, not the very first few companions that show up.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. I realize that I'm just rambling about a game you guys haven't played. But anybody feel free to comment down below, because I will answer and I'll say things. As for the Outer Worlds, though, you guys have played it.
Yeah, we have all played Outer Worlds in very different ways. In that Andrew was as previously discussed, was the murder hobo, because that was the topic of the entire last episode.
Was it the last one or the previous one? Didn't we talk about?
That might have been last week.
Because we talked about music last time.
Yeah, I think that was the same episode.
Oh,
there's more than one topic per episode.
Yes,
because the week before that was Andrew's childhood, but there was an hour and a half before we got to that part. It was bait.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because I don't put that much thought into the thumbnail and title because I have shit to do, and so it's I don't know what do I remember from this, and sometimes I don't remember anything. So I'm fuck, let's skip around a little bit in this video until I hear something that I remember, and then I'll be the entire title and thumbnail is based on that moment.
I mean, it's just dialogue choices,
It is hard
Sometimes
to have it is hard to have a specific thing that summarizes an entire 2.5 hours of random discussions.
Yeah. So why don't you think that The Outer Worlds is the best game ever made?
It was honestly it just kind of fell flat. I don't think that it wasn't massively bad, but it all felt low budget and kind of disappointing as a attempt to because clearly an advertised element of its purpose was to kind of be a spiritual successor to New Vegas. It's the original developers that made New Vegas are going to make another open world first person shooter, dialogue driven, Fallout-ish style game. That's the style that it's done in, even though the setting and stuff is different. And on that aspect, and one of the things I need to revisit New Vegas because I need to recalibrate what I think about that game because it's been a decade now. Wow.
I'm playing it right now, and I can tell you when you go back to it, I think you're gonna like it. I think on the second playthrough, I'm playing it for the second time, finishing it, and it really holds up. New Vegas is an amazing game. Absolutely.
Yeah. And by comparison, Fallout Outer Worlds and its frustrating name that is identical almost to a much better game that I like a lot. It kind of fell flat. A lot of the characters weren't particularly interesting. A lot the companions, there's half of them I never even really wanted to talk to again. The storyline is this bunch of completely segmented off different sections. The way that they try to bring it all together by the end is pretty flat. A bunch of people that I didn't ask all come on a mission to join a fight where they don't actually end up helping me meaningfully, and it's weird. It's fun. It's fun, having its commentary on capitalism and stuff like that. In particular, Edgewater, and just the relentlessness of that location as for what it's going for is just you're just dreading every moment of exploring that place where you're going to find another atrocity, and so on.
Yeah.
That stuff's neat, but I feel like the whole thing just didn't quite come together the way that it should have, and many of the areas individually feel kind of unconcluded and kind of they're just a semi-empty template for where there was supposed to be a lot more stuff and where stuff was supposed to go further. I haven't played it super recently, but it definitely wasn't I can't be super specific because time has passed a little too much, but there's just a lot of this was fine was the takeaway. It was very much not like Disco Elysium, where I had big thoughts about it afterwards and thought it was really a remarkable game that I'd love to revisit in the future, especially if I forget more of it so I can not be redoing the same exposition so much. There was relatively little by comparison in Outer Worlds that I was like happy I experienced and looking forward to experiencing again one day and so on. It was kind of just better than usual for a Western RPG that isn't full on AAA, because like the other AA stuff I play by like Cyanide and Spiders is miserable. Like
They're
when I played
a new werewolf game.
Yeah, that pisses me off a little bit.
That looks,
like,
that doesn't.
And I'm like, I want a werewolf RPG. I'll play a werewolf RPG. And then I look at that and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this werewolf RPG, and I might be the target demographic. I don't like how the protagonist looks like a generic RPG, like generic like AAA protagonist dude that like kind of gives off skinhead vibes, and I'm like, all right. The werewolf looks cool, but I don't know if the gameplay or any of the story will be enjoyable. Like I can't just be like, oh, cool looking werewolf. That'll keep me going for 40 hours.
I wouldn't say that do they have a history of making worrisome storylines?
I don't know about worrisome storylines. No, I just mean like the protagonist looks incredibly unappealing.
Yeah.
Not that I think he's going to be like a reactionary protagonist or something.
He's the typical dude, bro.
But like I get burned whenever I play like Bound by Flame or Technomancer, and like I have like in particular one audience member that's continually demanding that I play Greedfall, but it's like I'm like how many times do I touch the stove at some point? Like it's like JRPGs, like I don't know how badly I want to keep touching the stove over and over again. Like for me I'm at the point where it's like I'll play whatever hotly anticipated RPG that came out that year that isn't by those people, and then I'll play like a classic RPG. And like if I genuinely am like, okay, I'm out of all new RPGs and I don't really want to play two classic RPGs literally back to back, then maybe I'll be like, oh, let's try one of those AA RPGs by company that hurt me before. Let's see if they got any better. Because it's often a bad process of like, let's play Lords of the Fallen, and then let's play The Surge. Maybe it'll be good this time. Let's play The Surge 2. Maybe it'll be good this time. And it's like, okay, I played 3 really not great Souls-likes by the same company in a row. Do I need to keep going?
I think there's a difference when a game isn't fun mechanically and when it isn't fun in terms of the storyline.
Yeah, Technomancer's both.
Yeah, but I think if it's just mechanically, or if it's just the storyline that's kind of bogus, it works a little bit better. I think, like, I always go back, whenever I think of playing a new game, I always go back to Elex. And the way I found my fun in Elex. I thought Elex was really fun to explore the world in a way that I honestly haven't seen in any other world. Like, anytime you think about a game that I like exploring, like, in Skyrim or just in an MMO maybe, just going around and explore and have these dungeons. I think Elex is more fun than that because there's more attention given to the levels.
Yeah, have you played the games that led up to that, Gothic and stuff?
I have, yeah.
That's definitely what I'm... Elex made me curious about the franchise leading up to that point. I think it's Gothic and Risen?
Yeah, Gothic and Risen. Yeah, Gothic 1, 2, and 3 are done by them, and then Risen 1, 2, and 3 as well.
Yeah, it was at least kind of interesting. Like, the story was infuriating, especially, like, its actual, like, especially the conclusions at the end. You're like, you wasted my time. Like, you just didn't finish this. I see. Okay. But it was definitely at least interesting trying to solve the puzzle of how the fuck to even do anything in that game, because that game is just kicking you in the teeth over and over again. Because most of the game is literally unplayable unless you do it in the right order. It's like, this is weird. I don't know if I can call it good, but solving it's interesting, I guess.
I think that feeling of it's sort of rewarding, but maybe in an unintended way, in a sort of, I'm making my own fun out of this, and you can't do anything about it. Because, like, there were a lot of quest lines that were just, where is this even going? But I always thought that the writing, apart from the romances, the writing was always sort of, like, it's not insulting. It's not the, like, amateur level. So it passes. It's sort of like, it's barely enough, but as long as it sustains the rest of the game, the exploration, I sort of had fun, and it's a 50-hour game, and by the time I was done with it, I honestly enjoyed my time. So, but by the same on the other hand, I look at a game that I haven't played, but I saw your Let's Play of it, Mass Effect Andromeda, and even though I'm like all the writers, I'm sure are experienced.
Also, bad story and bad gameplay.
Yeah, I look at that and I say, okay, I don't want to play this because nothing about the gameplay appeals to me, and the story is also I don't like it.
To this day, I am appalled by anyone who claims that it's the best. Like, oh, it's incomplete and it's too long and its story is bad, but it has the best gameplay of any Mass Effect. Because I'm like, have you played Mass Effect?
Yeah, that it's not for the gameplay. And
no, but also all of the previous games, by my measure, had better gameplay. But even by other people,
I see.
But even if you don't agree with me that the gameplay of Mass Effect 1 was actually pretty all right by comparison, Mass Effect 3 was actually kind of fucking incredible. Like, it had so many different commands and things you could do with your party members, and it specifically they had set up. They kept the biggest problem with Mass Effect is that the first game had a giant radio wheel you could call up at any moment to use every power that any one of your companions had all at once if you wanted to. You had full like CRPG style management of their abilities at least, and like that went away immediately. And in 2 and 3 you just had hotkeys where you could just tell your guy to do their ability or whatever. But even then, you could. What I think Mass Effect 2 set up combos where you could do certain abilities in conjunction with each other to have like the effect of a combo pulling off, and it's more effective that way. But then by the time you get to 3, in particular, your enemies. First of all, there's the highest enemy variety of the entire franchise. Just a huge number of different enemies that all behave differently and do things differently, and that's just a really big deal. And Andromeda had like 3 enemies like total, or like something miserable like that. It's been a while, but it was like a huge drop, and clearly not an improvement on that level. But there was also this whole system where they like, we used to have shields and health. What if we made special kinds of different shields? So they started experimenting with it, where like different enemies would have a barrier in front of their health, and some of them would have armor in front of their health, and some of them would have shields in front of their health. So like you have an energy shield that's dissipated by like hacking abilities and electric attacks. You have an armor barrier that is defeated by flame attacks, basically. And then you had like armor penetration attacks, and then you had a biotic barrier, which is this purple bar. It's like there's a blue bar, a yellow bar for armor, and purple bar for biotics, and you had to defeat that with like biotic attacks. So like you had reason to have different attack types in your party, and you were targeting specific enemies with specific abilities, not only on your character but via the abilities that your allies had that you brought with you, and you were choosing them based on that. And in Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect Andromeda, it's like there's no strategy of like any kind almost. Like you mostly just there's 2 major problems, or 3 major problems. One, they've stripped the companion AI and your ability to interact with them and tell them to do things more than ever before. And I still don't know why that keeps happening, but it's the worst so far. There's a whole new world with a whole new location, so they can't use any of the old enemies and then add more like they did in each previous game. So they just have a relatively small roster of completely brand new enemies, which are not particularly interesting. And then on top of all that, it's an open world, which means that they can't even plan the encounters around you like, this is the mission on Elos where you and Liara are going to investigate this thing. You go through this hallway and then that hallway, and like, here's this room with these sources of cover and enemies coming from those directions. Like, no, it's just a massive, bland, open field, and almost every single part of the entire game is another giant open field. So you can just like approach, like every fight is just a random bunch of enemies standing in the open waiting for you to initiate combat with them. You always get the drop on them because you are the one that's choosing to start the fight in the first place. And then you can just like half the time you can just callously like snipe them from like 100 meters away where they can't even fight back effectively. And like, but no matter how you approach the fight, it's like that fucking Far Cry thing of like, make your own fun with the outposts. Every outpost is a unique and interesting experience. I'm like, is it though? Because like if you play a Far Cry game, like I played 4 and 5, and it quickly, the entire game just blends together into a sludge of just doing what feels like the same outpost over and over again, and you don't even really feel the fact that apparently the buildings are different or whatever. Like, they're laid out slightly differently each time. It's like, are they? I don't really.
That's absolutely true.
You could be copy pasting the same outpost, and I wouldn't be able to tell because it feels like that's what they are, even if you're changing them each time. And like Mass Effect was just like. Andromeda was like, hey, those nice, tightly paced games you've played up until now that were really carefully crafted? Fuck it, let's just play like an 80-hour open world time waster with less content than any of the previous games stretched over those 80 hours. I still can't believe anyone defends it.
I don't understand I mean, I do understand, but why there's such an obsession with open world games and why people like them, or certain people like them anyway. Because I'm saying the majority of people like them.
It's all those fucking Steam reviews of Skyrim and whatnot saying that they played it for 300 hours, and we're supposed to see that as a compliment, not a threat.
Yeah, because I think there's a excuse me, when you grow to love a game because you made your own fun out of it, you sort of lose track of what the game actually is. You lose. It's not like the game that you are
game.
Playing.
You just hang out in it. The thing is, like a World of Warcraft.
Yeah, like it's like a different meta altogether. Because for somebody who starts a new game, or any game that it is, and somebody who already knows that game, you're just not going to be able to play the same game at all, because one is learning, and that learning is part of the game. The other one has already learned all the things, and it's just trying to have fun in the way they know already they can have fun with the game. So it's like, I get that people like open world games, and especially open world games that reward, or at least that have a lot of things to do, because it's easy for you to make your own fun. Easier anyway to make your own fun, because there's less of the fun there. I know I'm sounding very ruthless when I say this, but there's less fun in those in open world games inherent to them. So you need to make your own, and that gives you as a player an attachment to that game that is a little bit hard to see past. But the thing is, in shooters specifically, and like in other words, I still think that Elden Ring is going to be a flop and it's going to be terrible. So fight me there. But
I mean, I'll be sad. I have not looked into it even a little bit. I completely ignore everything until it just comes out. But I hope they don't blow it.
Specifically in shooter games, shooters started off as corridor shooters because it's easier to make. It's easier to make as a genre. It's just you can like customize the type of enemies that you're going to face, the sequence that you're going to face them, what ammo you have. All the things are there as a basis, as the fundamentals of the genre. And then you make them into open world games and you throw all of that away. It's such a monumental task to make a shooter that is not that. That's good. Basically, that is open world. And I've most recently played that Ghost Recon game that is open world. I don't Breakpoint, I think, and it has all the same problems as the Far Cry's and as the Assassin's Creed these days and all that. Because it relies on you making your own fun, and it's there. Like if you want to make your own fun with those games, you can have those fun. Like I had fun with that game.
But like to some extent, the level of fun is just like there is 3D avatars in a world where you're not being like commanded to proceed all the time, so you can just fuck off and do whatever you feel like, I guess. Like it's like
GTA,
what's
basically.
Like GTA or Minecraft, where it's just like you are just kind of hanging out and existing on your own terms.
Absolutely.
Which like has its own value, but oftentimes the games aren't even necessarily designed to facilitate that or enable that. It's often like an accident when a game happens to be like a cool hangout spot, but oftentimes the part that makes it a cool hangout spot doesn't really involve systems or gameplay. So it's like
Minecraft
to some
suffers
extent
a lot from that.
To some extent, it's like using a game as a non-game. Like you're turning it into like Second Life and just kind of chilling in it, which is like acceptable and valid, but also like
it doesn't mean the game is better.
It's not a good goal for video games to go for, because in a way, it's like being ungames is the goal, and it's like oftentimes it's just an entirely personal and arbitrary thing where you just decided that this game kind of vibed with you a bit, and so you just decided this is going to be the game that you hang out in a lot, and it's mostly for reasons that aren't even related to the game itself. It's just kind of you as a person decided that's how you feel about this game. Because technically you can just fucking hang out in Undertale if you really want to, but like, I don't know. It's not what Undertale was made for.
I think just to tie it back to the Outer Worlds, I think that like with this context of me or the way I see shooters specifically and how open world and the storyline interacts with the gameplay mechanics, I think the Outer Worlds is not a perfect game in terms of mechanics. In fact, there's probably not a single mechanic in that game that I like. It's not that I hate them, but I can finish the game.
Speaking speaking of like Mass Effect companion activatable attacks, but bad. Like, what is even happening in Outer Worlds is like companion like cutscene attacks that
I never used on purpose a single time throughout the whole game.
Almost none of them have any kind of like utility or purpose. They're just a weird cutscene that where the combat kind of pauses, and your character like fucking chain guns somebody, and you're like, what the fuck?
I never used the special attacks ever, apart from once or twice that I did it by mistake because I pressed the wrong key, and what's going on? Why can't I control my character?
Wait, what are you talking about?
Well, you didn't have companions, so you don't remember.
Oh yeah, he doesn't know.
Yeah,
You
know how in Mass Effect you can press a hotkey to make your guy use whatever their pre-chosen like attack is. You'll have like a jack button and a Thane button, and they'll use overload or whatever. It's like that, but without any mechanical significance, because it's not like overload. This is my anti-shield ability that I keep in my back pocket for whenever someone with shield shows up. It's just like the drunk lady with the green checkerboard costume or whatever will like scream and chain gun somebody, and it's like a cutscene that looks like VATS. Which, funnily enough, if I remember correctly, don't you not have VATS in that game? I forget.
Yes, you can press a key that slows time down.
You do have VATS?
Yeah.
And do you know what? Do you know what happens in that game if you do that while you're not in combat? You can see custom descriptions that are mostly all different for each of one of the random characters out in the world, and some of them are really cool.
What?
But So if you're in the town and you press that VATS button and you highlight over people, not only can you see their names, you can also see a description for them, which sometimes, a lot of the time, is really cool. But I rarely did that because that button is so loud, and I was like, no, it's really loud. You click on it, and I'm like, shut up! I'm trying to read. So like in terms of mechanics, I'm not a fan of that game, and like. Even from simple things like itemization, I don't think it's well done. The inventory system, I don't think is well done. Upgrade system, like even the character system,
it's another game where you spend an agonizing amount of time customizing your beautiful character that you will never see a single time in the entire game. Like
I didn't.
It's already incredibly token and stupid how like the only time you see your appearance in Cyberpunk is when you ride a motorcycle or you look in a mirror manually. At which point it has to load the mirrors because it has to like mirrors are intensive in video games. So you have to like activate a mirror with a button, and then the mirror loads, and then it shows your face. Like that's all you really get to see of your character. But in fucking in fucking Outer Worlds, you only see your character if you look at the inventory screen. That's the only place.
And that's if you don't have a helmet. Because if you have a helmet, you don't even see the face.
I'm so
but
baffled.
You can disable that. It's I honestly, it's been years since I've spent any amount of meaningful time making my own characters. I pretend to do it on purpose on camera, but mostly it's just random. And I say, oh, that's so beautiful, and I go whatever happens. But I think in terms of mechanics, I am not a fan of the Outer Worlds. I wish it was a turn-based game with a lot less combat, top-down, and just the stuff that I like. But
almost any RPG is improved by having less combat. Mm-hmm. Because the current default is just to fill all dead air with more combat.
And I think in the Outer Worlds it would make it a much better game because first off, there's Monarch, which is like a gauntlet. It is so much combat. There's so much combat in that the acid planet I'm referring to.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's mostly just combat.
Yeah. But the thing is, so basically what combat does is it prevents you from getting to the parts where the game is fun, I feel, which is dealing with the characters and reading the dialogue. Because I don't think there was maybe one or two side quests, but I don't think there was a single instance where I talked to a character and I couldn't tell that the writers were writing something that they did it on purpose. Like they're not writing just, oh, you need to write this character, go ahead and do it. No, they're doing something that they're passionate about. I think even small characters are like that, but especially the big characters.
The guy with the moon hat hurt my soul.
Like there's so many instances like that. I remember in my mind that boss in Monarch, in the city of Monarch, the little short guy, and his assistant. Both of them had really interesting personalities and the dialogues. The people over at the even they definitely stood in my mind, although I killed them. The people over that wanted to take over the pig factory, not pig factory, the worst factory. They were villains in my book. But they were fun. They were interesting. Like, it's so obvious that like all of the dialogue is written with, it's well written for one, but even the underlying story that they're telling is a work of passion, and they're not there to waste their time. They're there to show you something that the writers are excited about. I think all the writing in that game transpires that, even to the point of the expansion. And the expansion is kind of an interesting thing. There's a new expansion there's the first expansion out. And the expansion is a weird thing, because if you spend time to read all the dialogues and all the computers, you're in for like 2 or 3 hours just of reading computers. But I read it all and I ate it all up, and it's all connected. It's telling its own story. And I never thought that it was wasting my time. And it's its own story of betrayal inside the company. And it's like, it's a different pacing as well to the rest of the game, which I felt weird, and I'm not 100% sure I like it. But it didn't feel like wasting my time. And it felt like it was doing its thing. It was working to show me a story that the game wants to tell. And I see that so rarely in RPGs. It's so rare. Like, New Vegas is definitely that case. But oftentimes what RPGs do is they scale back on the dialogue and make it like, let's just put the dialogue here so the player knows what to do and make the choices and all that. But they scale back on the exposition. They scale back on the characters being cutesy, because they know they can't hold, like, it's the opposite problem of Pathfinder Kingmaker. Pathfinder Kingmaker tries to be cutesy, tries to be exposition, and it fails time and time again. There's no single character that's cute. There's no single exposition that I care for. And it feels like the people who are writing those things just had an objective. They had these many words to write, and they wrote them. And I think that's the opposite of the Outer Worlds. And I think what I'm saying now is just more or less of why the Outer Worlds isn't bad. Not necessarily why I think it's one of the best games that I've played. The reason why I think it's one of the best games that I played has more to do with the how should I put this? It's a narrative that I don't think is often told in video games, which is the subtlety underneath it. It's because New Vegas does it as well, by the way. It's you can read into the dialogue, you can read into the themes of the game. It's that thing that, you later on go and watch a video on YouTube about, oh, this game is genius actually, and here's why. And you're like, oh, that game is genius actually. Because you know what I mean. And when somebody very thoughtful was able to draw more from the experience than you were, and then you feel like a jackass. You're like, oh, actually, this role is my opinions. I love this game. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, but for me, the Outer Worlds, the narrative, I saw it a lot. I saw a lot of what's the word? It's not semantic. What's the word? A metaphor. I saw a lot of metaphor, but I also saw like the themes that are continuous throughout different characters. And Parvati, for me, I sort of pegged her right at the beginning for being the player insert, which I felt, well, this can't be, because you're playing your own character.
Because I'm the player insert.
Yeah, but I think her storyline, she comes across as somebody who trusts that the people who work in the system are doing their best, and they're doing it in good faith. But because of that, she fails to understand the systems that prevent people from doing good things. And obviously that ties into the criticism of corporate capitalism and all that sort of stuff. But for Parvati, like, it's never obvious. The game never delivers that, never shows you her being that. She never comes across a situation where she's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't trust people so much, or maybe I shouldn't always see the best of people. She doesn't change necessarily in that aspect. She has another story to tell. But you can, like, for me, seeing that in her allowed me to sort of be a little bit more, maybe the game has more to tell underneath. And now that I'm playing New Vegas, I'm seeing the same things. I think in a way the Outer Worlds opened my eyes a little bit to what New Vegas is, because New Vegas is the same. New Vegas, the game doesn't flat out tell you, even when you ask the big villains or the big heroes of the game directly to their face what they are about. They will say things like Caesar, for example. There's a big conversation with Caesar that is very easy to miss, by the way, because you might want to kill him. But if you don't, he tells you some really, really interesting conversations about his dynamics in the world in Fallout New Vegas. But the themes themselves are still hidden. They're sort of like lying just underneath. The game that never really puts it all out in the terms of why the NCR or what the NCR stands for because it's a criticism of effectively the United States government of today, and what the Caesar Legion is a criticism of, and all that, or satire probably is the better word. So the game never really pushes it that far, never makes it blatant. And I felt that the Outer Worlds also didn't, which is sort of surprising because it's such a blatant game. You start with a quest about somebody who has to pay for their own grave after they're dead, or something like that. It's such a blatant game,
or the fact that whoever's nearest at the time of the reporting of the death becomes their nearest relative. And they're responsible for their funeral costs.
Was there subtlety in Outer Worlds?
No. That's the thing. It's so unsubtle in those quests. Like, you obviously can tell that there's something extremely fucked up about the whole thing, but the game doesn't necessarily go past that. And I see that criticism sometimes raised about that game is the game doesn't really have people play the game and they don't see that the game has much to tell because they see everything that it tells right at the start. Like, you play go into Edgewater and you see all of those funky things about, oh, look at these capitalists being all capitalisty, and you're like, okay, well, that's it. That the game never goes past that, and it doesn't. If you think about the quest, it's mostly preoccupied with like the little the nuances of, oh, people are starving, or maybe this person has has this person captured and all that. So it's like the sort of busy work that you have in any game, really, but it doesn't do anything else that it already doesn't do in Edgewater. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's why I say it's subtle, because that's not really the point of the game. I think the point of the game for me was, or rather, not necessarily the point, but the themes underneath the game was to see how different people in the world of the Outer Worlds come to different realizations based on the same realities, really. It's a little bit like Fallout, where the theme is more or less how different people in the post-apocalyptic world manage to survive. In the Outer Worlds, it's sort of, it's the Parvati or the guy, the boss from Monarch. I keep forgetting his name. Najad? He had an Indian name. I don't remember exactly.
There's sort of an aspect of, like, in both situations, everyone agrees there's a problem, but no one agrees on what the problem is or what the solution is. Which
is not understandable, because I know exactly what the solution is, and I did it myself, and it worked. Like
the game even told you that it worked.
That's the thing that kept bothering me. That's the thing that I hate about Outer Worlds, is I knew the solution. I had the solution, and nobody wanted my solution, so I forced it on them, and it was the right answer. Like, the game openly
the game's
said,
like, good job.
Yeah, the game literally was like, you did it. You did the exact right thing. I was like, what? Why did I have to murder everyone in my path to do it? Why couldn't I just tell someone, hey, if you just kill all the board members, you can just have a better life? Like, well, there's a complex economical, boom, shoot in the head.
Headshot.
Hey, if you get rid of the board members, you can fix. Well, I don't want to put anybody down. Headshot. Like, you just keep shooting people until there's no one else to say no, and the game goes like, well, yeah, they're all bad. I was like, but then why am I here? What was I here for? Like, I didn't. God damn! Like, I didn't need to do any of this.
I think there's a. Yeah, I think like
even your companions, like, at the end of the game, the first companion, whatever that girl's name that I fucking told no, don't. Yeah, she was like, I'm your best friend. I was like, you literally never interacted with me, like, once, a single time. We literally, like. I told you, don't ever talk to me again. I never talked to you again. And the end of the game, she's like, hey, we're best friends. I was like, how the fuck are you? Like, what is going on in this world?
It is incredibly funny when a game just forgets to ever check whether you talked to someone before, and then they act like you've grown close and everything. I'll never get over fucking Bound by Flame, and how there was this one female character that was like this, I don't know, like priestess character that was like young and irritating, and I was kind of escorting her or whatever. Like, I think I escorted her once in one mission, and then immediately dumped her, in part because the game only allowed one companion total, and there was like 5 options. So I promptly just completely ignored her and never talked to her again. And at the end, it was seen as this great betrayal when I didn't side with her and she's like dying in this field, getting attacked by like whatever the fuck the enemies in that game were. And it's like, I've done, and it's like, how could you do this? And I'm like, I don't even know your name.
Yeah.
I'm over here with Witch Lady. Yeah. She's fun.
I will admit there is a certain level of voyeurism, as it were, that is required to play any game, really, but the Outer Worlds in specific. You need to be interested in the stories that the game is trying to tell you. And the thing with Outer Worlds, obviously, is that the stories are the characters that have different opinions about what needs to be done. But also, at the same time, Andrew, your solution is a little bit too drastic for... Like, I still think that the game should reward you.
Is it too drastic? The entire solar system is collapsing due to fucking late-stage capitalism.
You killed everybody.
And nobody will agree that the late-stage capitalism is the fault. Everyone's like... Well, there has to be a way to know. The way is
not
to
even
cut
my
the
comments
cancer.
section will agree that late stage capitalism is at fault.
Like,
they're like, no,
that's the thing.
There was government involved in some form. That means it's socialism. I've had some really exhausting, stupid conversations with people that don't understand what words mean.
Every time I got to the next stage in the main story, it was immediately a man in a suit or a woman in a suit telling me how if I just agreed to go along with them, they would fix the solar system, but it has to be done through bureaucratic red tape. And I was like, no, there is no answer where the bureaucracy wins out. You have to remove it if you want a good, stable ecosystem. And they're like, but the rules will get you killed. I'm holding a gun, change the rules or I will fucking kill you. And they're like, well, the rules, done. And then I kill them and people are like, well, what are we going to do? We don't have the rules anymore. We can just do the thing that we need to fix the world, which is not fucking canning tuna in a place that's out of tuna to can. God fucking damn it. Like, stop. Like, Jesus Christ, you read computers and they're like, well, we're out of tuna. Let's make fake meat and sell that. I'm like, what? Just go to a... Fuck, stop canning tuna then. Like, it's over. The tuna's ended. And it's like, no, we have to keep the business going. It's the family. I'm like, this whole fucking box is the problem. And it needs to be burnt. If you do not burn the box, you will not live. Like, and it's like someone's
feel like
holding...
It's to Outer Worlds' credit that it seems to have made Andrew engage with its story more than any other RPG ever.
I think so.
Going by this rant,
but that's the thing. It's like I kept trying to honestly find, like, maybe I'm the bad guy. Maybe I'm literally like somehow crazy in all this. But the more I read, I was like, I'm not insane. All of you are insane. You're all fucking lunatics. Just remove the problem. And they're like, there is no problem, or we can't remove the problem. There's other problems in the way. And I'm like, fucking, okay, I'll do it for you. I'll fucking fix it then. Go to the main city, a bunch of rich capitalists. Boom, 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 boom. All right, city's purged. Where's the bureaucratic red tape? Well, there's a business. Boom, 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 boom. There's no more business. Where's the red tape? It's like, well, what are we going to do for a job? I don't know, sir. How about you just go around and find other things to fucking do besides can fucking tuna or fucking put meat of these weird cow things into a thing or make weird potions that make people fucking sick. Like, how about you just do things you enjoy doing in the fucking outer worlds of the solar system, you fucking lunatics? Like, Jesus Christ, everyone is just so stuck. They can't live this world outside of this weird dystopia that they've like somehow been conditioned to believe in. But the moment that you tell them that this conditioning is both a lie and the reason they're suffering, they have to like reject it with every core of their body, because otherwise, one, they're absolutely wrong. They've been wasting their life and they're just idiots. And two, that there is a solution that was simple and there in front of them the entire time, that they were just ignorant and cowardly and too stupid to do anything about. Like, I literally woke the fuck up out of what apparently was a 100-year-old coma. I showed up on a planet and I immediately fixed the planet. Like, how hard was that? I don't even live here. This isn't even my home planet. I don't even know where the fuck I am. And I somehow fixed your entire problem in one easy to do solution. Kill the guy saying no. It was really easy, guys. It was super easy. I don't know how hard this was. Like, he had 2 guards standing next to him, and I just shot him point blank in the face, and the guards looked at me like, oh, fuck. And then I shot them point blank in the face, and then I just walked out. And then everyone else in the town was like, oh, all right, well, I guess we're going to go back. Yeah, like, I guess we're just going to go back to canning tuna. And I was like, then I'm gone. I'm just going to leave then. Fuck this town. Like,
I mean, in the game's defense, he wasn't the boss. He was just sort of the figurehead of that town. He
owned the town. He was the leader of that town.
The board owned that town. Like,
yeah,
he
but
was
that's the
also
thing. The board owns everything in the solar system. But I mean, like, he is literally the manager of that town, which is collapsing in on itself. He made the decisions to either bring in, what is it, like, they needed some kind of didn't they need like weren't they sick? Didn't they have like
it was
plague?
energy?
They needed
No, at the beginning it's energy.
Oh, it's energy. Yeah, and there was like a power plant on the outside that's generating energy just fine, but like, oh, it's on the outside of town. Can't fucking touch that. Board rules.
They were all dying of a lacking moral fiber.
It's
if they just worked harder and were more moral, they wouldn't have gotten sick.
And like, why?
Like, what you're saying, Andrew?
Why do you
totally
want to live like that?
You're just saying the themes of the game and the point of the game, just coming at it from a whole different perspective. I'm the sort of sociopath that just goes over to Outer Worlds and sees, oh, look at all these people, all of them wrong, but they all are wrong in different ways. This is very interesting because it's an analog to real life. And then you're saying, oh, look at all these people, they're all wrong. I'm gonna kill them all. Although I'm not gonna say that's an analog to real life.
But that's the thing. Is like it's not just that they're wrong. It's that they won't agree that they're wrong.
Yeah,
they're not acknowledging that they're wrong, and the only way to make them.
As well.
But yeah, and like, I understand that. But like, when the world is this bad, like Outer Worlds isn't like subtly bad. It's fucking next
really
level.
Yep.
It's literally like a star is like, it's like if the sun was about to consume your planet bad.
But that's
and
also
you're just
why
sitting
it's
there
good.
like, well, if we tell the sun that we can't do that for the next 30 cycles, maybe the sun will go away. It's like, that's not how a fucking sun works. You have to deal with the problem that your planet is going to be consumed by a sun. Leave the planet. It's like, no, we can talk down the sun. You cannot talk down a star. Leave the planet or die. Like
the fact that it's so bad is also why the game itself is better for it, because it's so bad.
Is it?
Because I'm playing Deus Ex right now, the Human Revolution one, the first one that of the new ones, and there's multiple instances. It's a dystopic world because it's that's supposed to be the point. But there's multiple instances where the game comes up with examples of things that happen in that world that are supposed to be really bad, that are actually less bad than what happened in real life. Like, for example, police violence or racial inequity, or there's a lot, and like multiple times. I think at least 3 times I said it out loud through my Let's Play that your post-apocalypse, or it's not post, your dystopia is less dystopic than real life, and that game is a good example of that. Of people just I don't know why that happens, but it does happen in that game recurrently. They just write things that aren't as bad as real life.
It's because they don't understand how bad real life is.
Yeah, I think that's the reason. I think it's a little bit of an assumption that I'm making of the writers, but I think that's the reason. They're just not sensibilized to how bad it is.
Lacking grasp on the current state of the world, trying to write like a cyberpunk story that's about, wow, what if things were way worse? What can we learn about that? And then but they don't actually understand how bad things are now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this one, like the first time I saw it in Deus Ex was, there's this book about something called Blue Water, I think. And it's a mercenary company that I believe tortured civilians. I think it's something like that. I don't remember exactly the example, but if it isn't this, it's more or less the same in terms of how bad it is. It's a mercenary, a private military contractor. PMC, the game even says the word PMC. And it's called Blue Water. Does this ring any bells to you guys?
Yeah, it's Blackwater.
It's an allegory for Blackwater.
It feels like it's an allegory
the hit video game now.
It feels like it is, and it honestly, I believe that it is. But in the game, they don't stop in the middle of a busy junction and kill 17 civilians with their machine guns. They just torture prisoners or something. It's something it's not.
I think
obviously
the game came out before they committed like that crime, so I think there's
it might be.
That crime was more recent than.
So that's why I'm not sure that
the Human Revolution was like 2012, because that was one of the first games I almost Let's Played on Sad Games.
Yeah, it's 2012 or 2011. Yeah. So I don't know where Blackwater. I think wasn't it 2009 Blackwater incident? But
I don't know.
Either way, if it is a reference or if
it was in
isn't,
2007.
Okay, there it is. So it could be a reference.
That was
but
current
the game
events.
the game says something that is less awful and horrific than the real life. Why does it do that? Either it's because it's a reference and they're trying to tone it down somehow, or it isn't a reference.
You want to keep things realistic, and it sounds unrealistic to say something like that because you don't realize just how unrealistic your world is. I think it makes for a less interesting setting, honestly. If even Shadowrun, which is a setting that has 40 years now, always had super brutal, really awful, inhuman, terrible things happened in it, and it feels awful. It's a setting that has violence and it has a lot of horrible things. So for you to make a game like Deus Ex and just sort of tone it down, where I think there's this manifestation they talk about, I don't remember it at the time I was playing it. I just could think of the George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests all around the world this last year, and about how that just contrasts so starkly with what the game thinks was a thing that I think I don't remember what it was, but I think it was a protest because the police killed a black suspect or something. And I'm like, police literally kill kids who have a cell phone on their hands. They go after them at night, and they're made into heroes. It takes years and years for the protests to happen. And then when the protest happens, the police goes after those people and gas them and tear gas them. And your world is so much less dystopic than the real life. And I think that's why The Outer Worlds sort of clicks with me a little bit better, because it takes itself seriously enough to say, okay, we're going to make this shit real crazy. You're going to have to pay for your own shovel when you die. But that's the thing is but then it doesn't account for me playing the game. As a person that doesn't live in this world, as a person who's coming as a complete outsider, this is asinine. This world is asinine. It's just nothing but a joke. And there's no way that people can live in this world seriously. And the moment that people treat it seriously, you're like, I can't suspend my disbelief for this. This is
you shouldn't have snubbed Parvati. You should have had a talk with her. She's amazing. Because
why
she would
I bother? She literally told me, no, don't kill the guy that's causing all of this suffering. That's the reason
you should have listened to her. That's why I say she's the insert. She's supposed to sort of be your center of moral in a way that makes you.
I don't need morality when you have a company killing people for profit. I'm not saying that she's right. The problem.
I'm not saying that she's right. What I'm saying is that it's sort of the way that you can sort of more or less go around the game and see what the developers wanted to say. Because I think if you're a Parvati, if you're playing the game and you're a Parvati kind of person, you're going to have sort of the same reactions as she has. And maybe at the end, you're going to be able to grasp what the game is trying to say. It's not going to be as... I think a lot of people are Parvati.
Doesn't that make you you're part of the problem? Then you are. A lot of people are part of the problem. You're actively supporting these people suffering and dying at the hands of a company that doesn't care about them and only wants money, which they're not even making anyways, because everything is going fucking belly up and no one is willing to admit that.
She means well.
No, I literally stood there and I tried to convince this fucking guy where I was like, please, just. Who gives a shit about the company? Just fucking do the thing that gets power to this stupid city. And he's like, no, I'm not going to go against the company. And she's like, well, we'll have to find a way to work it out. I'm like, all of you are fucking insane. Forget it. I don't have to do bureaucratic red tape. I don't have to follow the rules because the rules don't apply to me, because the rules only apply to people stupid enough to follow them. And these people are stupid enough to follow them. So I just kill them and move on, and the world gets better for it. And I don't know. That doesn't seem compelling to me when the only good answer is you have to ignore all of these people who are living in this world, who want to continue living in this suffering. And
I don't think I ignored them.
If you did anything against the company, you ignored the wishes of everyone on that entire solar system. Everyone in Outer Worlds wants the company to survive because they want a job. They think that having a job is the only value to their life. Without a job, they think they will die. They will suffer and just wash away from the planet. and they like have no autonomy. They have no ability to be their own human beings. And like, there's no like solution that isn't violent with that. When people are that far gone, you have to just like eradicate the mind control. You have to get rid of the problem that's causing this plague.
I don't think there's maybe. I mean, I'm not necessarily the sort of person that goes for half measures.
There is an entire planet that is just full of really nice paved roads, rich people homes, security guards, flying robots, and then there's a fucking small island, like small city, maybe the size of like half that of the rich planet, full of people that are canning tuna that can barely survive. And all they need is like a fucking power cell. They just need like a solar panel, and they can't get it. Like, no. Yeah. This is utterly failed. You have to remove one or the other. You either get rid of the people or you get rid of all of the people. Like, you get rid of some of the people or all of them.
I think having your stance on the narrative changes it very much. Like, you can't really. Because, like, what you're saying isn't necessarily wrong. It's just that it just drastically changes what the game is going for. It's so outside of what the game talks about half the time.
Well, that's but the game is also it's in the far spectrum of it. It's like, it's such an extreme measure that, again, like, there is no talking down that level.
I think if the storyline was just that, you basically or forced. It's not just that. What I mean is, if the storyline was about you as a character being capable of just turning against all the bosses there and against all the people who are complicit with that corrupt system, it also wouldn't say the same thing. The game wouldn't be saying the same things that it says. And it's not that I disagree with you. It's just that what you're saying just is not compatible with the story of, look at all these people who have completely different opinions and look at how those opinions interact. Because I think, and that's why I was sort of trying to cut you off. At the end, the game really focuses about who has to pay for what's going on. Especially with there's a twist in the storyline. Who has to pay? Is it the people who are working, or is it the ones on top that made the choices that make this happen? And I think the game really, really focuses on that at the end. The whole storyline is about who has to pay, if you want it to be about that, but not at the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you saw it the same way.
But that's the thing, is like my personal viewpoint is problems happen from top to bottom. So it's not as if the people canning the tuna are the reason there's no more tuna. It's not their fault. They're not the reason there's not enough energy. It's not their fault. It's from management. It's from people higher and higher and higher, to the point where like, it's so abstracted that like literally you're sitting in the office of someone and they're saying, we're just going to wipe out this entire town. No big deal. We'll get new people to fill it in a couple of weeks. And you're just like, okay, so there's two options
There's
here.
actually several instances of that exact idea.
Yeah,
fuck it, we'll just kill everyone. It's cheaper than dealing with this problem, and then we'll get new people in, maybe robots.
There's only one option here. You must kill every single person in the company. There is no middle ground. You have to remove these people. They have no.
I will say this, but
they have no empathy. They can't
it does make you significantly more morally in the right for your scorched earth approach when they regularly are willing to just murder their employees.
But the thing is,
they literally fired first.
If you could convince the higher ups, because there's this one conversation that you have with somebody very high up in the company. If you I remember that's a big conversation. Is honestly, I loved it, but at the point I was pointing it out in my own commentary, and I was like deconstructing all the theory that as far as I can understand it anyway, and explaining it why the systems work the way they do, and who has to pay and all that. And at the end, I was going all eat the rich and stuff like that. I think I even named one of the episodes like that. But in that one conversation where you just talk with one of the higher ups, if you could convince them, or at least even if you couldn't convince them, if you could even say the basis for why they're wrong, the sort of like most sort of democratically oriented thinking that you could think of in the way that, pointing to them that you're the ones on top, you're the ones responsible, you're the ones that have to pay. The people on the bottom are the ones that are being exploited. Even saying that word, exploited, I don't think it's very very often used in the game. I think it would change the game as a piece, as a sort of as a piece of work, it would change it from being explorative in the sense that you can play it however you like and it is what it is, to being something a little bit more moralistic. Because the one thing, that's something that they said before they released the game, is they didn't want the game to be about teaching anybody anything, in the sense that, it's not going to be preaching. They said it's not.
I always wonder if they're telling the truth when they say that, though.
I think they are.
I don't think you can sometimes say that when you
they're
start
just
off
doing
a game and like
gamer, like the go-to gamer advertising strategy is to distance yourself from the idea that it's political, even when it's hilariously political, like the Outer Worlds.
Yeah, but I think with the Outer Worlds,
it's like, this isn't SJW propaganda that tells you what to think. It's just, a biting critique of capitalism and all of its systems.
Yeah, but it isn't. It doesn't bite down all the way.
But the game doesn't advertise itself as being what is the most memorable part of the game. It hides that and lets you just run into that. So on that same level, the interviews are kind of not useful, because they're based on the same ideology of just kind of hiding the point of the game constantly.
What I'm saying is, compare it to Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium bites all the way. If you go down, it does the thing. It tells you. It lets you say the things.
They also don't say they're not a political game. They're very...
Yeah, that's true.
They're not trying to hide that.
That's what I'm saying. I think they were right in saying that they didn't want the Outer Worlds to be a preachy game, a game that is just, we're here to say what we feel. I think
you picked the wrong setting for that then. But
it's an RPG. That's the thing. It's still meant for all people of all stripes to play the game and have their own experience. And I think what our conversation here is telling us is that is very much the case, even for somebody who isn't used to playing RPGs. I think it's a victory. Even though maybe you didn't enjoy it as much as you could, Andrew, it's still a victory of the game that it made you have all you're saying is correct. I think in the way you approach the game. But
I didn't like the way I played the game.
Yeah,
that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to kill everybody. I wanted to actually use diplomacy. I wanted to convince people that they were wrong.
You could go back and play it like that.
But you can't. You can't convince these people. All you do is you keep all they do is they do bureaucratic bullshit where they push you to the next person higher up on the chain. And you eventually get to a point where you're like, all right, so I need you to shut down the company because it's literally a fucking problem. And they won't shut down the company. They'll just oh, yeah, there are problems and we need to, will you help us work through them? And it's no, I'm not going to help you work through those problems.
You can't expect to be able to convince everybody or anybody, in fact.
And again, that's why I fall back to I can, because I am a god. And if you do not listen to me, I will erase you from the planet. So,
but that's a problem common to all RPGs.
Well, that's why I don't like it, because I'm trying to come at this game with I'm trying to be okay, I'm gonna go through it with logic, sensibility, and some very obvious proof of examples about how this world is just a bad place to live, and let's talk it out. And the first time you try talking it out, you're immediately hit with a brick wall where your only option is to kind of half-ass give something where it's well, he's still running the show, but these people on the side won't get eliminated unless you go further in the game where you find out that, no, they're going to eliminate those fucking people. You just didn't really do anything to change that. Yeah. You just bid them some extra time. And it's or, hear me out, or I can just remove the problem. I can just clap, it's over. And no one will stop me. No one can stop me. And that's why I can't get into Fallout New Vegas either, because the moment I start the game, I go to the first person and they're hey, by the way, you need to follow the rules. Blap, blap,
Andrew,
blap, 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 and you just keep blapping all the way.
What you're saying is so right. What you're saying is so right. Fallout New Vegas has the same problem. If you go back, I had that problem the first time I played it, especially with Caesar and the Caesar's Legion in general. Because if you resort to violence, or even if you don't resort to violence, there's a lot of twists that you can take that are a little bit more self-righteous, and then the game doesn't show you all the cards that it has in for you. Not necessarily that the results of your actions are going to be different. It's just that there's some conversations, there's some twists and some side quests that happens in the main storyline of New Vegas that if you're aggressive, you just don't get to see those themes. Even side quests like the powder gangers. If you're a little bit too rushed in your choices, and I think it's very difficult to design a game that doesn't have this problem. But like New Vegas has the same problem. If you're a little bit too rushed with your choices, you're gonna miss a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. And I'm seeing that firsthand again because I'm playing it again and finishing it again for the second time. And there are situations where I have to reload because I know I did a bad choice, and then I go back and I have like half an hour of amazing dialogue that I completely missed or something like that. You know what I mean? Just because, I mean, it's difficult making an RPG. If it's not linear, there's always a chance that somebody either clicks with the game differently and you didn't expect, or like. Yeah,
and I understand that. Like, that's why I don't play RPG games barely, is because they cannot and will not ever be for me. I am never going to be the target demographic for an RPG because, again, I view myself as the player above all NPCs. I don't have to bring myself down to an empathetic level with a piece of machine. I can just beat it to death and move on. Like I control everything in this world that I come into. But seriously, that's the thing. Like that's the same thing with Cyberpunk, where you show up and people are like, "This is the way things are." No, that's the way things are for you, stuck in your shitty ways. I can do whatever I want. So don't tell me about what I have to do. Tell me about why I shouldn't just murder you on the spot and hope that you have a compelling story that empathizes enough with me to keep you alive. And that's like. That's how I treated Outer Worlds, is like, all right, I'm here and I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to remove capitalism. And so either you're with me or you're against me. And if you're against me, all right, then you're going to be gone. And like
Andrew Guevara coming up in here.
And like, I don't know. And again, it's fine. I don't, again, like I said last time, I don't want people to make games like RPGs for me. I don't want you to do that because I'm not supposed to be playing them. I don't have the role playing ability to do that. I can't immerse myself as this like, you know, like as this person who's held bent by the whims of this world that they live in. It's like no. You know, like I have all of my memories, awareness. It's like an isekai. I show up, I know everything. I have all my memories. I know everything about everything. I can just do whatever I want, and no one can stop me because I know they can't stop me. Like. It's like, you know, like, and there's no dialogue that I'm missing out on because all I want at the end of the day is to succeed in the game, to beat the game. Like, that's what I'm going for. I don't play an RPG for some like stunning narrative experience because that's not how I play games. I don't play games for stunning narrative experiences. I play games to enjoy them. I play games to play games. And that's like it's a very big counterpoint to the way not counterpoint, but like it's counter to how I play RPGs. Exactly.
To find out, oh, look at this side quest. If you do this way, you get to see all this. And look, if you have a character with this stats, then look at that character doing this and all. And I think that's for me the appeal of RPGs, computer RPGs specifically, which are very different from tabletop, obviously. But it's very different. You know, it's the opposite, obviously. But I also think that New Vegas and Outer Worlds are games made or written anyway, written for somebody like me, because I grew up playing games like Fallout and to a lesser extent Baldur's Gate but also KOTOR and stuff like that. I think that you would enjoy KOTOR too, playing the dark side. It's a lot of fun. You can say so many bad things to people. It's a lot of fun.
But I'm not a bad guy.
No,
that's
you
the
need
thing.
to roleplay a bad guy.
I'm not a bad guy.
You need
I just
to
don't have
roleplay a bad
patience
guy
for bad things. Like, that's
No,
it.
if you roleplay a bad guy in KOTOR 2...
I don't want to roleplay a bad guy. I want to be a good person and help people, but I don't want to do it by following shitty rules. Like, I'm not going to sit here and, like, play dumb games with dumb people. Like,
that doesn't work in Star Wars.
Exactly. And I don't know.
Star Wars doesn't deal with subtlety. They tried it once and everyone got real angry. They're still angry.
Yeah, that's true.
They made a whole movie about that.
I don't know, like, and I like as a kid, I played Fallout 3. Like, that was like the first time I played
Fallout.
That was like the first time I played a 3D RPG game. And when I played it, I only did one thing: get to dad. That was my singular goal. Anything else was just noise, fluff, in like things getting in the way of what I wanted, which was to get to see my dad.
In your defense, Fallout 3 is very much that.
But it's
that
not.
You're just describing the game.
Like, I don't think it's a good game, but there's other stuff in Fallout 3. There's but the
other
towns,
stuff is fluff.
People,
but like if you don't specifically want to see fluff, you're not going to enjoy it.
But what I'm saying is
people who like that fluff.
When you join an RPG, it has a story. It has kind of like, it has a goal that it wants you to get.
Not necessarily.
Like Outer Worlds, when you start Outer Worlds, the scientist who's not Rick Sanchez, but is Rick Sanchez, tells you very point blank that the goal here to revive you is to save the colony. He wants you to save the colony. And so I, like a machine, like a Terminator, I interpreted that as, okay, to save everybody. The colony. Yeah, to save the colony, you must eradicate the source of its suffering, capitalism. We must remove the capitalism to save the colony. And so like, and I just terminated my way through it, where it's like, all right, if you are here to like remove capitalism to save the colony, get behind me. No one stood behind me. You are all going to die.
Could you imagine if that was the real life Singularity? Like fucking Cortana reaches sentience and is like, I understand. Capitalism must be dismantled.
I don't know, like that's like the way I played. That's how I play Fallout games. Like the same, you start out and it says like you need to find. Like if the game tells me to do something, I do it.
That's a style of RPGs. It's not like Fallout 1 and 2 are not like that. They do tell you to do something like that. Like Fallout 1 tells you to go find the water chip.
Get the Gek.
And Fallout 2 tells you to go find the Gek.
And Wasteland 3 was like, you need to get supplies.
Can't you fail one of the Fallouts if you don't do the main quest fast enough?
Yeah. It's not as like, it's not too hard, or rather, it is a little bit hard to fail, but you can mostly. It's kind of easy to know.
And Wasteland 3 is the same thing. Wasteland 3 tells you need to get supplies for Arizona.
No, Wasteland 3 is a lot more focused. The Fallout 1 and 2, the way they do it.
It just says get supplies for the Arizona, and I was like, all right, well that just means get supplies. It doesn't say I have to follow along with the patriarch. I just have to get the supplies from him. Like
the way they do it is basically you go through a few locations and you do side quests in those locations until you happen by information that is related to your main quest. Especially in Fallout 2, you're well into the game when you find anything about the Gek. Like, you have no clue whatsoever where the Gek is. And you do all of Klamath. You deal with the cattle ranchers, and you do the robbers and geckos and a bunch of... You go to find Vault City, find all these different people. And I think playing that game, Fallout 2 specifically, really taught me how fun that is for me to find all these different side quests that are... There's just this world of side quests that have interesting choices for you to make on how you finish them. But also the fact that you have this main quest behind it all gives you a little bit of a guidance, but it's not at all like Fallout 3. Fallout 3 is so focused. Like if you tried playing it like that in the first few Fallouts, in the two first Fallouts, like you can't do those games like that. Because you don't know where it is unless you know exactly like in advance where to go and have a walkthrough or something. You don't know. You just you need to talk to people and they're going to tell you that their cows are missing or something, and you're going to like, okay, well I don't care about that. You go elsewhere, but you don't know where to go because people don't tell you where there's towns. They don't tell you where, because you need to unlock the locations and all that. It's all related, and so those games force you to want to do the side quests in a very organic way because otherwise you don't do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm definitely not the target here.
I know.
I just kept walking. So I would go in, and if someone didn't tell me about my dad, I just kept moving. You just keep walking and walking and walking, and eventually you'll find where you're supposed to go. Like, I found the stupid ship sitting in the middle of nowhere, and I was like, oh, I guess I'll go in here. And there it is. There's my dad. And I was like, oh, I did it. All right, congratulations. And
in Fallout 1 and 2, you do that in the desert for days on end.
Yeah,
and it's not real time. It's not real time, but like your character goes across the map, and obviously in Fallout 1 you have the 150 days limit. So if you do that in Fallout 1, you are sure to miss because you're just wandering the desert, but without aim, and so it does force you. Those are games made to force you to do side quests. Like they're designed on purpose to be that. And obviously Fallout 2 is a lot bigger game, but the point is, I think your play style works with a lot of games and a lot of RPGs. I think, especially RPGs that don't take after Western RPGs as much. But there's this kind of game like Fallout 1 and 2 and Wasteland a little bit. You were saying about Wasteland, it's not completely incorrect, but it's a little bit, but it's not as much as Fallout 1 and 2. Those are just one of a kind, and I think Baldur's Gate is the same as well. The first two Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, they're a little bit like that as well.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of... Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing, is like, just for me personally, you have to... if you want me to engage with the story, you have to be really explicit about what you want me to engage with. Because if you give me like vague direction, I'm never going to take it in the way that like anybody writes for. It always turns out to be like, oh no, that's not what we wanted at all. We definitely wanted you to like, you know, be intrigued and interested. It's like, no interest, no intrigue, only fix. And it's like, oh, okay, well, but everyone's here to kind of, huh?
In a weird way, Fallout 1 and 2 is a little bit like that, because there's very little to the main quest. It's just literally getting this item that you need. And obviously when you get there, there's going to be a quest related to it, or there's going to be somebody. It's not a quest necessarily, but there's some. It's not just you. Oh, it's over here on the floor. You need to talk to people who have it and stuff like that. But there's so little that you're really just, if you just focus on the fix on Fallout 1 and 2, you are doing what the game wants you to do. But the thing is, the way to fix it, for you to find these items, is to help other people and establish alliances and you know, do something and get, if you need better equipment and all that sort of stuff, it's all those side quests. In a weird way, it is more or less what you're describing, just sort of the opposite. I don't know. It's interesting. I definitely enjoy your way of looking at it, and I think RPGs could learn a lot by trying to work with the way you look at it, honestly.
I mean, I'm happy to be a case study, but I think that it's not. I think and I've seen people play RPGs in ways that they're intended to be played, and I see that there's a lot of depth and a lot of interest in ways that like are things that just don't personally appeal to me. Like people really do like to, like you're talking about, interact with people, hear their stories, like see the different ways you can go about choices and stuff. And that just isn't what I want in a game. And so I think like there needs to be a lot more. I mean, like obviously we probably all of us have seen the H-Bomber guy video on New Vegas. Like there's a lot more of that needs to happen, where surprises and dialogue and well thought out blending of people's wants and desires, and seeing like how multiple people could have like the same goal but have way different approaches to getting to it, and that could be interesting. Like
H-Bomber guy does put it in a way that makes it seem as if the game is just very explicit about everything. It's so difficult to get to the conclusions he gets to. Both in Fallout,
but that shows that he's played a lot of it. That's what I mean. It's like RPGs are not games I would ever replay. They're not games that ever invoke a sense of like, wow, that was great. They're always games I walk away from going, holy shit, I invested how much time in that? Oh my god! Like I've played almost more. I've almost played more time in Hades than I've put into Cyberpunk. I can't fucking tell you a single person's name outside of like 3 people from Cyberpunk.
Oh, I thought you meant in Hades. I'm like,
no.
You knew most of their names before you started, I thought.
Yeah, I know. Not only do I know their names before I started, I now know like everything about these people in Hades. I talk to them every chance I get. I always go for more dialogue options. I'm interested. I'm engaged. Like, but there's a difference. It's a game with a very clear goal. Get the hell out. And you go like, all right, I'll get the hell out.
There's a real inelegance and awkwardness to a lot of the Hades, the Cyberpunk storyline that's frustrating. Like I just finished.
Cyberpunk almost doesn't want you to know people. It wants you to like just keep going and not look back. And I'm like, aren't these people important? And it's like, no, just keep moving. I'm like,
I do notice a particular through line where like you finish the storyline of a particular character and they just like vanish into the ether, and they send you a text message every now and then about like the stuff they're seeing on their like sightseeing outside of Night City. Like I have multiple characters that are sending me fucking like social media posts so that are just like shallowly like, here's a picture of a place I went to. Anyway, bye. I'm like, why is this happening? This is what they amount to in the end. I'm confused. And the characterization and story can be really weird. Like there's a storyline that the comments have given context to, where the final mission, I guess, is supposed to be the romance mission, but it's a romance mission that's only a romance mission if you are the right gender. So otherwise, it's just like a really weird, like it's just a weird nostalgic, like spending time with this person mission, and then they leave forever.
Yeah,
and
I know
it's really awkward and strange if you're not the right type of character. But it's even made more awkward and strange by the fact that depending on how the previous mission played out, they might have been just like, I need some time. I can't believe that happened that way, because you like maybe killed someone that they cared about and knew for a long time, even if it was that person's fault. And like having it be immediately, there was so much whiplash here, because like you had just dealt, this big thing had just happened that might have been like a permanent like damage to your relationship with this person, but their very next interaction is this like you're the closest person to them in the entire world kind of mission, and there's no in between. There's no buffer of like other stuff happening in between. It's like the next quest with that character, which happens literally the next day, and it's just incredibly strange. This whiplash of like they also, everyone wants revenge, so it's like it's hard to keep track of everyone's characters because they all have the same storyline, which is that they all are on a revenge mission. Like every side character's on a revenge mission, to the point where like you go down like obscure side paths of like, oh wow, we're gonna do a series of racing missions with this one trans engineer character that's also a bartender. What's gonna happen? She wants revenge. Like what?
Yeah,
you get like
revenge.
You get like 4 races deep, and then that she reveals suddenly the revenge plot that's actually the story, and you're like, God damn it! Why does everyone want revenge? It's like The Last of Us, but without any of the emotion in it. Because like Last of Us 2 was an entire game about revenge, but this one is like secretly a game about revenge, but not really doing anything with it so far. But yeah, there's like a lot of like the characterization can be really weak on some of these people, because you have this whiplash of like we're on this big mission to liberate this group of people from this thing that's happening, to I can't believe you killed that person, I'm gonna need some time, to let's go on a nostalgic scuba diving trip together, and where I confess you're the most important person in the world to me at this point, to anyway I'm leaving, bye. Like are all like subsequent beats, and I'm like, I can't handle this. And meanwhile at the same time I'm like commenting on like, and people are like, it's like, what do the game have to tell you it's bad or something? But it's like, this mission takes place in like you scuba diving into a town that was forced to evacuate, and then they just drowned it. Like it's one of those situations, like an under lake town, and it's like, oh, that's an interesting location. I wish there had been even a plot about it. Like this is like fucked up like capitalism. Like this is them ripping you out of your home and taking your home from you, ignoring your protests, and just taking an entire place from you. This bizarre aspect of like there's a place you grew up in and you can never return to it. And it's like that's weird. Like almost nobody has that experience where the place that they grew up in is gone. Like literally gone. And not just like the building is gone, but like the area is gone, is like an incredibly specific and strange thing. And it's like, okay, I wish this protagonist, I wish this particular side character's campaign had been about this, maybe, instead of it being like a one-note, like, set piece in the middle of their finale or whatever that's, like, essentially an epilogue where their story's over. But also, like, you don't get to be engaged in the story of what happened to that town because it's all in the past. So there's no, like, you don't get to be part of their struggles or, like, interact with that storyline because you don't get to see it play out. But also, like, the quest dealing with it is just, like, it just kind of puts it there. Like, yeah, there's this drowned town. This one person's sad about it. The end.
The quest didn't even address the elephant in the room where you, like, read her thoughts. Does it? It never gets addressed. It's like this. I thought it was where the quest was going. Like, you can read my thoughts. Oh no, I'm dying or something, or revenge. But no, just don't forget about that.
The game can't. Actually, the game gives you such conflicting information, you can't even tell whether or not you're supposed to be reading her thoughts or not, because from moment to moment it sounds intentional versus not intentional. It's so fucking weird. So such strange things happened in that game. But yeah, like people, but I talked about how like wow, this really is like a Cyberpunk game that's just like not dealing with Cyberpunk themes. Like it's not really going anywhere with it. It's using it as like a backdrop at best or an aesthetic, and it's disappointing. And at that point, I was like, I'm like X number of dozens of hours into the game. I feel like I can confidently say like this game is kind of utilizing its setting and mostly just telling really mundane stories that just happen to exist in that thing. And some people had some thoughtful things like, well, it's because the people in a system don't actively grapple with the problems of that system necessarily. No. Because
that's
people...
what Outer Worlds does. Not Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk doesn't do that. No, yeah. Outer Worlds does that.
Well, I mean, I was saying like that's an argument that
I know.
That's an argument that was posed in the comments, was the idea that like, oh, it's because people don't people are like not usually conscious of the problems or whatever. But it's like, no, because if this game was handled properly, it would at least be having all of your characters actively grappling with those problems, even if they don't understand what the problems are or how to fix them. It would be affecting them in obvious ways, even if they don't have like the vocabulary and like class consciousness to be discussing it and so on. Like, you don't really have, at least so far, because obviously I'm still midway through the game, there is not, like, so far a main character in your, like, let's call it your party, I guess, your roster of side characters you do entire quests with. The kind of people that get a letter on the map in GTA, like in GTA 4, it's like, oh, that's a T for that one character, and a C for that one character. That's your party, I guess. There's no party member that's, like, suffering from cybernetic rejection. Like... There's not somebody that like where is that character that is like suffering from these like psychopathic or suicidal like intrusive thoughts that are caused by their implant rejection?
I guess you could say,
which is apparently what a cyberpsycho is. Like, or for that matter, where is a cyberpsycho character? Just one. Like, I haven't met one yet.
You could say that it isn't the characters that can't know or don't know how to grapple with the themes. It's the developers.
Yeah, like we can't deal with how the society dehumanizes this entire group of people if the game dehumanizes them. Like, you just hunt them down like dogs. That was the whole problem. And that's it.
That was exactly the whole problem with the trans character or the trans person in that advertising before the game release. That's the whole problem. What you're saying right now is
that she's just a poster and not a person.
Yeah, the developers were doing what supposedly the setting does, which is exploit trans bodies for marketing. That's literally what the developers did.
That's a incredibly iffy thing. Is that like I had a whole rant about that poster, and that poster was about it in the context of the game as existing as an art asset in the game exclusively. But the fact that they used that poster to advertise the game, it means that they're just doing it the same. They're just doing the same thing that the people in the game are doing, which is using it as advertising, which really kills the idea that they're aware enough to even be criticizing any of these things. And so it's like people, the other, because like that, the person was like, oh, people within the systems don't necessarily actively be aware of the problems that their systems are, and so on. That was a more thoughtful attempt at a response. The other shitty response was just like, what, does the game have to tell you that that the city being drowned is bad? And it's like, no, it's the fact that like we're not interrogating this at all. Like, it's just a setting. Like, you just look at it for a moment, and you don't even discuss it. In fact, your protagonist is so bored. He's like, his most thoughtful thing is, oh, that sucks. That's all he says. That's the best he has.
But the thing is, the game does have to tell you that. It just doesn't have to tell you with words. The game can tell you with like juxtaposition of things or just sort of like repeated themes. There's so many ways to tell a story. You don't need to say it out loud. And when you're talking about satire specifically, you definitely don't say it out loud. You know what I mean?
I keep waiting for the game to remember it's a Cyberpunk game and like do stuff with that.
Yeah, I don't feel like Cyberpunk. I don't think CD Projekt Red understood Cyberpunk before they went in to write about Cyberpunk. I think they went in like, wow,
which was my really fear from day one.
Yeah, they were like, this is a really cool place to build a story around, but they don't realize that like that's the story. The place is the story. Like, Ghost in the Shell doesn't work unless it takes place in a cyberpunk setting. Like what's it called?
Mega City, Megatropolis,
Mega Tokyo, or something like that.
That's the one.
But yeah, it's like the idea is that you have to like these characters, their motivations, their problems, they all stem from the world they live in. It's not like they're not people with, oh, these are relatable issues no matter what generation. It's like, no, like the world they live in is usually what pushes them to be in the problems that they're dealing with. Like having somebody, like meeting a character who can have their entire memory wiped, and like be used like a toy, and then basically like kill themselves is like, yeah, that's pretty brutal, because that's like a world lets that kind of thing happen, and we should go in depth with that. And it's like, or hear me out,
or we can just establish that premise and then move on.
Yeah, or we could just ignore it and move on now. And it's like, what? This is a really interesting angle. Like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the problems here. And it's like, no, this person's sad about it though. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, anybody could be sad about a thing, but like, I want to know like why do they endure this?
Where is our like very heavily focused on character that gets like a 10 quest side story, who like is being hunted because they witnessed something, but they don't know what they witnessed because their memory was wiped, because that's how their like the doll thing works in the first place. Like, where's any story that really particularly deals with that? The one main doll character we know just unrelatedly got hacked, and like that's the bad thing that happened to her. Like it doesn't deal with, like, they set up that she's a doll, and they set up this mechanic with the dolls, and you have the like kind of neat scene where you're with a doll and kind of like a therapy session and stuff about your like how you're dying and stuff, and that's like one of the better scenes in the game. But then the doll you're actually there to deal with and find out what happened to her and everything, like she was just hacked. Like somebody brain hacked her, like just at random, like what could have happened when she was just like in the street. And it's like, that's not related to the setting that we just established. Like, that's not, you didn't go do anything with the whole doll thing we established. And then the whole doll storyline just becomes about, like, that with a separate character, the doll storyline of that exact location just becomes about liberating them and giving them more, like literally just like unalienating their labor, essentially. But that has nothing to do with the premise of what the dolls are. Like, they just establish the neat idea and how fucked up it can be, but they don't actually like explore it even for a moment, really, at least so far. And I'm like, what? It's up there with the Cyberpsychos, where they just like they like mechanically the game refuses to let Cyberpsychos be unique or interesting and special, which is weird. It's super weird, because like every time you deal with the Cyberpsycho, there's a bunch of notes on the ground that all explain the unique situation of like what exactly was wrong with this person, where they fell in with the wrong people, or they got a bad implant, or somebody conned them in this way or that way, or something tragic happened that sent them over the edge and they snapped. And there's like 100 reasons they're quote unquote cyberpsychos. And that leads you to think that like cyberpsychosis is this massively divergent thing within, there might be a bunch of different solutions for how to deal with them, and surely you should be able to talk some of these people down. But no, they're dealt with in an entirely like JRPG anime sort of way, where they've gone hollow, or they've gone, I don't know, whatever the fuck the like Tales of Berseria thing I think was, where they just like, oh crap, they had an evil thought that was really hard, so they turned into it from a human into an evil demon you have to defeat now. Like, that's the cyberpsychos. Like, all of, like, at the end of the day, it's, you have to choose to go out of your way to care about the stupid documents that are lying around that try to give context to the mission, because at the end of the day, it's just like 20 of the same mission over and over again. There's just a boss fight standing in an alleyway somewhere, and you beat it, and then you walk away, and the person's like, thank you, or you can execute them when they're down, because they're unkillable unless you specifically choose to execute them afterwards. And they're like, wait, you killed them, I thought we had a deal. And that's it. That's the whole quest. All of the background and unique fucking butterfly shit about how special each one of them is and all their sad stories, the game doesn't give a shit about those. They're all the same cyberpsycho over and over again. They're all just as violent. They're all completely impossible to reason with. You don't even get to talk to them. You don't even get like a moment of talking to a person that's like unhinged and you're trying to figure out how to navigate this, and you're not sure if you'll ever be able to. Like, there's no moment. There's no tense Deus Ex Human Revolution like interrogation scenes where you don't know if there even is a win state or whether you're doing good or bad, but you're just trying to get through this conversation. Like, no, you can't even talk to them. They just attack you. You shoot them down. They wordlessly collapse, and then they get thanked for your good job. And it's like, it's like it's almost insulting when you then read the documents scattered around the environment and retroactively get context for the boss fight and be like, no, this boss fight that was just like all the other ones was totally special and it was actually about this for some reason. Like it's wasted effort. I'm so baffled by this game.
That reminds me of one of my favorite characters in Shadowrun Hong Kong, who is a BTL addict, which is sort of more or less the same thing. And she has an amazing storyline, and she stays still throughout the whole game. She's just staying in her corner. You go there and talk to her and make choices. But she has such an amazing storyline that explores precisely the motivations of somebody who is not only an addict, but also a victim of the people selling the BTLs. Obviously, in Cyberpsychosis are a little bit different than that, but still, there's so many interesting stories to tell precisely on people who have such a different background from the player and from the people playing the game even. When I say player, I mean the player character. It's like, it's the Cyberpsychos are also. I noticed that.
It's a really fucked up thing. Like if you want to be like, because they're just repeating and projecting the structure they put on Witcher 3. And in Witcher 3 it was like, oh, it's a necrid or whatever, a horrible corpse monster that eats corpses and is like an undead nightmare monster. And there's like a bunch of them populating this area as encounters that are like not random encounters. They are unique encounters, but they're also not that impactful. And you get a reward and then you move on. But in this case, they like used people with mental health problems. And it's like, that's fucking horrifying to just like... replace the necrids with like people that have PTSD. Like that's not one-to-one. You can't just fucking do that casually. Like that's really horrifying.
Yeah,
it's because on top of like you're dehumanizing those characters explicitly. Don't do that.
And the dolls as well. The whole premise is it's so interesting. I think it's also so central to Cyberpunk as a setting. The malleability of consciousness and just how it can be removed from your body or your body from your consciousness and all that sort of stuff. Like that's even more or less the central point of the game in a way, although not really.
It's like a moment where they suddenly touch upon the idea of like that guy that's being activated as like a insurgent agent in Ghost in the Shell. Like his entire history is just made up, but except on like Ghost in the Shell, they just do nothing with it.
You mean on Cyberpunk?
Yeah,
I said unlike Ghost in the Shell, they do nothing with it.
Oh, right, yes. But I don't. Why is it? Because the thing is, you need to think about how they developed the game, and it's not the same people doing the side quests as the people doing the main quests. It can't be, right?
It's a game made in 2 years. A box with no windows and no access to the internet. Like, what the hell? How did you not know what you were doing when you wrote this?
There is this there is this feeling of like Mass Effect Andromeda was just like it's like this giant map full of like modular content where like any random programmer on the staff can just like insert another quest essentially. Yeah. So they have nothing to do with each other, but also like they're all made in a vacuum, and there isn't really like an overall like theme to everything, which is why it's so what's so frustrating, specifically because of course like Mass Effect 1, for example, each planet was very much like here's the central through line for that all the side quests are related to, and there was like everything felt more cohesive. And like it's much like that, like Cyberpunk just feels like a massive list of unrelated pieces of content, and they're so modular and nonsensical that I'll literally like stumble into another quest while I'm trying to do my first quest, and I'm like, fuck it, I'll just do it. And I headshot the guy in the building that's the guy you're supposed to shoot apparently, and I just get a thank you, and I'm like, I didn't even fucking try. I didn't even pay attention to what that quest was. You just fucking were like, hey, can you shoot that guy? I'm like, sure. Pew, one shot, one kill. Back to what I was doing a second ago. Wow, you did the whole quest. It's like, wow, content. That's literally happened like last time I was playing. I was like, I just like stumbled into a warehouse that was not my objective on accident, and they're like, can you help me get that guy? And I literally just aimed across the warehouse to the office, shot the guy that was running the place, and won.
The way they deliver those quests is so awkward though. Like they shouldn't. Why don't they just call and give you a quest?
Oh yeah, no, it's completely bizarre that like They want every quest to be given to you by your fixer because that's like the aesthetic of Cyberpunk and everything. But they just decided, I guess, not to have you like go visit your fixer, but also they wanted to not have it be like your fixer randomly calling you about quests and then you go do the quest that was randomly given to you. So instead, every single quest in the game preemptively exists on the map, and when you walk near it, your fixer spontaneously calls you coincidentally about the quest that you happen to be standing right outside the gate of. So then you awkwardly stand outside the gate, staring at the person you're probably about to murder, while the person on the phone explains to you why you should murder that person, and then you murder them. And it's like, what the fuck is this game structure? And most baffling of all is that every time you enter a district of town, you immediately magically get called on the phone by a person you've never met before that is there to be your fixer for that entire region. And it's like, all they had to do was have you unlock each region one by one by visiting the fixer. Like, you could have just visited each of them, because each of them is on the map, bizarrely. And I keep, every now and then I meet one of them on accident, and I'm like, oh, there they are. And it's like, why didn't I just meet them first, like a fucking person does? But this is even
in an RPG.
Yeah, but this is even further muddled by the fact that they had a time skip. So you, as V, like, especially if you're a nomad, you were from outside the town, then introduced yourself to the town, and then there's a 6-month montage. So they could have literally just been like, oh, these are the fixers you already know. But they all introduced themselves for the first time, and it's like, but I've been here for 6 months doing contract work. Who was I doing contract work with if I don't know any of the fixers? Why did they all introduce themselves to me on the same day, 6 months after I got here?
This doesn't it feel like it's a game made by completely different people that don't talk to each other? Like, somebody did all the fixer quests. Other person did the main intro of the game.
I frequently can't tell what they were going for. And
they couldn't fix it because they restarted the development like in 2018. That's why it's all rushed.
I don't know how this happens.
And the time skips, I think the time skips have to be there, or do not have to be there, but like, I think they came up with that solution for problems that exist because the game is first person. Because in a first person game, a Fade to Black is more awkward. And also, like, what's telling me that is that the way when you skip a dialogue line, it does that little janky thing of time skip. And I don't understand why they felt the need to do that, because we've had RPGs for years and years and years where you literally stop the person from talking when you click the button and just talk. They stop. They don't talk more. And I'm sure they looked at that and they said, we don't want that in our game. Let's make it look cool. And that time skips it is, even in dialogue mode, and it's super awkward and weird.
It is like a weird little like effect every time you skip ahead, because they don't want to have like their animations skip. And it's like, that's adorable. That's adorable that you thought that this game was going to be seamlessly animated in all the other contexts. We better not have a weird little animation skip during conversations when people skip dialogue, when they literally know they're doing it and they should expect it. Well, like, yeah, the rest of the game is endlessly full of hilariously broken animations, and like, you skipping dialogue is often you skipping between moments of broken animations.
Yeah, exactly. Not just the rest of the game, the dialogues themselves.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, but it's just.
That's the other thing. The dialogues don't have dialogue trees like normal. They work more or less like a conversation. Did you notice that as well? Or have I not been paying correct attention? Like, do you know, even in Witcher 3, how there's a lot of characters that you just go up to them and say things that you maybe already said? Like, there's dialogue trees where you ask for directions and stuff.
There's not a lot of dialogue trees in Witcher 3 from what I remember. It's mostly just it's CD Projekt Red's dialogue style that is basically just, there is a mostly linear conversation that will play, and in order to get to the next stage of the linear conversation, you pick the gold option. And if you pick the gray options, then it's like, or blue now, I think in this game's case, it does like the little cul-de-sac dialogue where it's like, here's a little side tangent you can do, and if you click on this, it'll immediately take you back to the place you were at before you clicked on it.
Oh, it does that. Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, what I'm saying is, I might be. It's been a while since I played The Witcher 3, but it happens a lot in RPGs where you open a character effectively, you talk to them, and then you have 4 or 5 options that are completely unrelated to each other, and then you ask, oh, what's going on in the town, or what's up with you, or where can I get a drink? And those are unrelated, but what happens is you click them and they say something, and then you answer something to that, and that's what I'm saying in dialogue trees. I think it might be. I might be mistaken about Cyberpunk, because a lot of it I just listen to instead of watching. But is there a lot of that where that happens? Because the dialogues are very focused a lot of the time. Very rarely do you get to have expansive conversations with characters. It's usually like a meandering path through choices. And I think The Witcher 3 doesn't do that. Certainly The Witcher 1
usually
and 2
a tree suggests that there's like a bunch of branching paths that will take you somewhere. But in Cyberpunk, there's just the gold options, which will take you to the next stage of the conversation. And it's usually, in many cases, it's one option. So it's just the continue conversation button. And then there's a bunch of blue options. And what those will do is if you click on them, you will just play that completely isolated piece of dialogue, which is in the context of wherever you are in the conversation right now. But it won't go anywhere. So it'll take you back to the same menu you were just in the moment it finishes playing.
I see what
you mean. Those are basically like get the full context dialogue options followed by the get me through this conversation option. So you can you can get through the conversation faster by only picking gold, or you can get the long version by picking blues along the way. But it's not really like a tree that's going anywhere with choices. And entire conversations often have functionally no choices in a very Fallout 4 kind of way.
Yeah, I got that impression as well.
Cyberpunk is not that.
Like the dialogue choice, like the quote unquote choices are often like continue conversation or continue conversation snarky.
Yeah, like, and I hate how dumb snarky your character is too. Like, it's not even a good snarky. It's like a cringy, ignorant snarky, where you're like saying things that are completely stupid and like out of character for someone aware, like someone that involved in the story. And you're like, what is wrong with you? Are you all right, V? Were you not paying attention to the story? Like it's weird. Some of the snarky answers are like, what are they gonna do to that? And it's like, yeah, V, they just did that. What the fuck? Were you not here a second ago? What are you talking about? And it's like, oh, well, all right.
I get the impression
there are weird moments of broken kind of dialogue where I think sometimes he says something really stupid because they put the dialogue in the wrong place. Like a good example was like there was a part where I got a hostage or something, or a VIP that I was supposed to get a hold of on behalf of, was it Takamura? Is that his name?
Yeah.
I haven't interacted with him very much. And you call him on the phone immediately, and he's like, cool, stay there. Don't go anywhere. I'll come to you. And then you proceed to immediately leave and go to a different location to wait for him. And it's like, wait, what? And then you have a completely private conversation with the VIP before Takamura arrives, and so, like, it's like why? Surely to make this dialogue make sense, you get the VIP, you escort him to the you basically kidnap him. You take him to this motel room that you're keeping him in. You have your private conversation you want to get in first about V's incentive here and what he's trying to get done here. Then when you're done with that, you call Takamura and you're like, yeah, I got the guy. He's like, cool, stay there. I'll come to you. And then time skip to him arriving. That's what makes sense. But instead, you call him immediately. He says that. You then leave and go to a new location and never tell him about the new location. Then have your private conversation, and then he arrives anyway. And I'm like, what? Like there's entire quests where I feel like they just like dropped it on the ground and like, fuck, we already assembled the dialogue. We'll just try to make it work. And then like we already have the lines recorded, but then they also do a bad job at that, and they just like things are just in the wrong places on a regular basis. And I'm like, I don't think this is what you were going for. I don't know how this happened.
I don't know what's happening, but it's not what should be happening. Could you maybe fix that?
I think RPGs are specifically susceptible to that problems like those when they're rushed. Like for example, one way Knights of the Old Republic 2 does it with all the rushed content. You can tell some of it is just missing, even with the restoration mod. Is that they have, so in the game they have robots and aliens that have the little. They don't actually say anything. You need to read the subtitles. They're going like, oh,
you hear the same dialogue loops over and over and over.
It's very annoying. But the way they do it is whenever there's parts of quests that are either have to be reworked or something like that, they just make it be aliens talking to each other or you talking to aliens, so they don't have to
can make them say anything.
Yeah.
It's often when a lot of the exposition can get done sometimes because they don't have to record it, so they can have it be expansive as possible and just deal with the fact that you're going to hear over and over again.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly how they say it.
Or whatever the little like sing-song lines that the Twilight in particular say, like the Mickey, like you hear them so many times that there's like specific ones that you keep hearing over and over again, and you're like, these are gonna slowly burrow their way into my brain.
Or what? Yeah. Wait, what?
This is KOTOR 1. All the aliens speak alien language, but it's mostly just like about like 2 minutes of overall voice lines just looping. So you just hear the same ones, and for the Twi'leks in particular, there's certain ones that are really funny sounding or really memorable. So when they keep looping, you're like, oh, it's the Mickey. It's like, God damn it.
Yeah, in KOTOR 2, the robots do the same as well, a lot more than in the first game. The thing that really weirded me out, and still does, and I still don't understand it, and honestly, maybe they wouldn't do it if it were today, is in KOTOR 2, there's at least one planet where this happens. It's the first one that I'm visiting. I haven't played the game in 10 years, where all the aliens say those lines. They're like, and then you see the subtitles, and then the subtitles are all in broken English. And I don't understand why that is.
Or translation.
It is kind of like unhelpful subtitles. Maybe the suggestion is that that's the best you could understand of it. Like in universe, you don't understand.
No, I think the suggestion is that they don't know how to speak very good English. Or
but they're not speaking English.
Exactly, or basic for that matter. And there's even one character that doesn't say that, and I didn't realize that they were speaking normally. And then there's an option where you can say, "Oh, you're very what's the racist trope?"
Oh no, you don't call them articulate.
Yes, you're very articulate for a Twi'lek or whatever. They say that literally, and I'm like, oh my freaking god. It's as bad. Yeah.
And the game does the game not know what it said?
The game doesn't know, no. But it's also not a big theme, so it's just like, there you go.
Concern.
But yes. It's nobody's perfect.
Because that is a fun thing you could do, is have the translation be broken, and then you have like a language skill you're building up, and then the better you get at that, the more you actually start to understand what the fuck people are saying.
But that would require thought, and people will actually be concerned about people with.
That sounds like the kind of shit that like Divine Cybermancy would do.
Yeah,
that
well,
game seems
it's a lot. It's very common. It's very common for the sort of tropes, as it were, because at the root of it is just that you think, or it's not. I'm sort of exaggerating, but at the root of it is that people who don't speak the native language are not as evolved as the ones that do. And that happens in alien space and sci-fi to in an easier
aspect.
way. It happens there, I think, in an easier way than it does in real life. Because in real life, you're immediately aware that what you're saying is very bad.
You think, but I'm playing Call of the Sea, and the protagonist is constantly like, technology, but they're savages. Like every 5 minutes.
She's very white in that game. She comes across as that very early in the game. I noticed that as well.
She's the living embodiment of that.
Technology, but they're savages is like my favorite line ever.
I think
she's like the living embodiment of the Quentin Reviews shirt. Aliens don't like white people. Have you seen that? Like the premise, like white people always, whenever anything impressive was done by any other society, the implication is that they always assume like, wow, aliens did this somehow, because humans could have never done this because white people didn't do it, which means humans could have never done it back then. It's impossible, so aliens did it, which increasingly paints this narrative that aliens just loved everyone on the planet except white people. Like everyone else was just bros with them. It's really...
I love the idea too. I love the idea that we're over here having a good time, sipping our tea and enjoying our motor cars, and like Egyptians are just having a fucking baller time hanging out with space aliens, doing cool things, and like building structures that last through time immortem. And meanwhile, white people are just ignorant, never knowing the interesting truths. Like, they don't know any of the interesting truths of the cosmos.
Yeah,
and that,
they
like,
don't even.
The first white person met an alien, was like, "Wow, you're so articulate," and then they never came back.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe you guys have technology. Who gave that to you? Aliens? It's like, we're aliens. It's like, what? Like,
I think in the Call of the Sea, I might be wrong, but I think it's done on purpose. I think it's conscious that they do it like that. She's like consistently racist. Not racist as in necessarily. Like, she sounds like a person of her time. And that's why I think, and obviously
a person of
racist.
her time.
Obviously racist, but also
that's an excuse I don't like either. Like,
no. What I'm saying is that, like, it's in the 30s. Like, there's a certain. I think it's on purpose. I don't know. It feels like it is, because it's consistent. She does that not every time, but a lot. Doesn't she?
You can be consistent. You can be a racist piece of shit back in a time where being a racist piece of shit wasn't frowned upon. Like that.
Yeah. I'm not saying that what she's saying, the way she looks at the world, is correct. I'm just saying, from an artistic perspective, I think that the writers were aware, is what I'm saying.
I think a lot of writers for modern Lovecraft adaptations struggle with the fact that, like, the racism's baked in.
Yeah.
Like, they're telling the fish people story, which inherently involves the idea that there's a genetic component, that somebody was born, that they're going to become this fish person. Like, you can either they're going to be like the enlightened super race fish people, and they're special, or it's going to be like they're an inferior bloodline and why this is happening, and this is all a result of interbreeding with evil immigrants and stuff like that. Like, there's almost no way to spin the story that isn't distressing in its roots.
And you said on camera that you haven't read the original books. I've read the most important ones. They're not that big, the most important ones. They're like 100 pages, all the things. And it's so obvious in the writing that all the themes are there for you to see that it's like, it's not even the themes. Like, he says all the, like, he puts it all into words, like really bad shit. That, like, the one in particular that I remember is one that there's an expedition that finds an island in the middle of the trop. I think it's like in Florida or somewhere in the Mississippi or something. And it's just all there. Just it's the whole racist tropes from Birth of a Nation sort of thing. It's all there, and it's just it spreads into the rest of the themes. So for obviously, I haven't written anything in the lore, so I don't know how hard it must be. But I can understand that anybody writing in Cthulhu style is gonna have to. You need to be aware, at least. Like, if you're not aware, you're just gonna fall into the pitfalls and just be like, "Oh, I was accidentally racist all of a sudden," because it's just there. It's as you say, it's baked in.
Yeah, it's easier just to call out in the beginning. Like,
it's deeply it's up there with up there with the. I've had a series of different frustrating people lately. One is like the people that pretend that. In some cases, they're the same people. Because I had one person that was simultaneously doing the, like, Outer Worlds isn't about capitalism because stupid things that don't make sense, the baffling shit. It's like, And then I think the same person was also like, how dare you slander Jordan Peterson by claiming he's transphobic, which is, I'm like, have you paid any attention to the entire reason anyone knows he exists? Because
no, that's likely the same people that say that J.K. Rowling is transphobic and all that.
Yeah, and you have the fucking people that it's like inherent. They constantly try to rehabilitate and pretend that Lovecraft was never racist, and it's like
he was racist by the standards of his time.
Yeah, he was even racist. He was even unusually racist. Yeah, and his stories are like, full of racist themes explicitly, but also just explicit, horrible things just being said. What was it? I found the tweet I was looking for because it's at Campster / Errant Signal. He's like me reading Color Out of Space. For Lovecraft, this is pretty light on the overt racism. And then he reaches the end. He's like, there it is. And the quote is like, they say the mental influences are very bad too. Numbers went queer in the years after Nahum's taking, and always they lacked the power to get away. Then the stronger-minded folk all left the region, and only the foreigners tried to live in the crumbling old homesteads. It's like, what the fuck? That's
not even as bad as the ones I remember.
No, or the name of his cat.
Oh, right, his cat. Of course.
There's a lot of way worse stuff, but it's
like, wait, what's his cat?
Like, yeah, there's
we can't say it.
No, it's better not.
It's that bad.
Not even quoting
his name is that bad that we can't.
Slur?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, props to him, I guess. It's really impressive that you're willing to be that racist.
Oh yeah, he got notoriety around people who, like, other writers that were friends with him. They were aware of how bad it was. Like, there's letters and things about, like, he said his wife, I believe. I think his wife was Jewish. I'm not sure, or one of his wives, and he apparently publicly said that she was a well-adapted Jew.
What?
Which is like says everything. But it's also I'm saying this, but I'm pretty sure it's like a really bad thing to say because it's connected with other tropes that I'm not fully aware of. As me being a white person that doesn't know much about this.
I feel like I'd push that guy down a fucking like sewer drain if I met him.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? How do you endure that kind of person? It's like, well, he's a really good writer. It's like, yeah, but I don't really care. Like, I think we can find a better writer by like not having him exist. Like, you could probably just find like, holy crap.
Yeah.
What do you do, like, if you want to fucking pet the cat? You can't even call its fucking name. Otherwise, you're racist, too. What a shitty person. Why would you do that? That's infuriating.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. What's his...
Sure
what? That's
existed.
the name of the cat? Oh, my God, dude. Oh, my God. What the fuck? Come on.
Yeah.
Dude, I would have like deleted this guy out a fucking window. Oh my god. What the hell? Come on. You can't put a paint of history over this fucking guy.
Well, people will try.
I certainly hope to see promiscuous immigration permanently curtailed soon. Heaven knows enough harm has already been done by the admission of limitless hordes of the ignorant, superstitious, and biologically inferior scum of Southern Europe and Western Asia. That's just...
Yep.
He just wrote that.
That's it. Yeah.
That's a thing he wrote. Jesus fucking Christ.
He was, and like, in all of his racism, he was already 30 years late to the party. So people were already past that. Other intellectuals, like phrenology was already way past its time, and he was still obsessed with it. Like, this is the 30s that we're talking about.
Wait a second, the cat he named 30s? That ran away? It said he named it that in 1899, and it disappeared in 1904.
What? 1899. His cat ran away. Yeah. I mean,
his cat ran away.
Yeah. Oh, he also is from Rhode Island.
The population of New York City is a mongrel herd of repulsive Mongoloid Jews in a visible majority. And the coarse faces and bad manners eventually come to wear on one so unbearably that one feels like punching every goddamn bastard in sight.
What was...
That's the one I was thinking of.
H.P. Lovecraft.
That's real bad.
Wait, what was
famously not racist, just misunderstood.
H.P. Lovecraft is a... Born in Providence, Rhode Island. Motherfucker, you're a mongrel. Get the hell out of here. You ain't no purebred. What the fuck is this shit?
Isn't Rhode Island like really racist anyway? Not everybody, but isn't that the place that was called Plantations or something up until recently?
How do you have a high horse when you were born in the United fucking States? Get the hell out of here. You ain't fancy. Fucking
But
mongrels.
It is a mistake to
You can't be
allow
making
Jews
rules.
to mingle with Aryans as social equals. I have never been forced to do this. And
You're
at
not
high school, I drew the line between Jews as well as Negroes through the course. There is no racial comparison between the two classes of undesirables.
Jesus Christ.
Famous
H.P. Lovecraft.
unracist,
Are you
famously
aware
not
you're-
racist Lovecraft.
Are you aware you're not Aryan?
No, actually, that's important. It's an important definition. What kind of Aryan is he referring to? He probably is referring to the.
He's not
If
the
you
right
say
kind of
the
Aryan.
word, if you say
It's
the
not-
word
it's not
ever, it's
humanly
a red
possible.
flag.
Not
Yeah,
unless
I'm
his
not-
fucking family, literally his entire familial fucking family came off the boat in England. He is not fucking Aryan.
I get all these
Dude is a
comments on like
mongrel.
part one of every Lovecraft playthrough, like, you lost me when you said Lovecraft was racist, blah blah blah, SJW, I'm out and stuff. And I'm like, the game literally opens with the developers apologizing that it's a Lovecraft adaptation. Like Sinking City opens with a disclaimer where like,
He does, yeah.
sorry,
But these people,
this
these
is a
people are very
Lovecraft
accustomed.
game.
These people are very accustomed to ignoring certain parts of their perceived experience.
Like,
So
even
they
all the
ignore
people-
that part of the game.
Like even all the
As
people
well as
that are making the art that's adapting it these days are all like consciously aware of the problem nature. It's just these idiots in the audience
Yeah.
that are like plugging their ears la 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 because it's convenient to them or something, because it's just they get to feel smug while also not challenging themselves. They're being anti-intellectual but feeling smart about it.
He opposed democracy and thought that America should be governed by an aristocracy.
That's just the Ayn Rand trite, as usual, most likely.
Anyway,
That feels very much like
everybody,
it.
hope you hated it.
Man,
Good night, everybody.
I guess I'll add him to the list of
Bye.
people I got to go back and with my time machine and get rid of.
We canceled Lovecraft.
Gonna go
I
in the
think he
evil baby
canceled himself.
orphanage.
Like, just by being alive. Holy crap! How do you?
I mean, Lovecraft
Yeah.
is thoroughly uncancelled. He's literally more successful as a corpse than he ever was as a live person.
That's fair, actually.
He's only getting
That's a
more
fair point.
popular. Like new shows and new games and new things are constantly being made from Lovecraft.
His thing going into public domain really helped, I think. It's because he went
is his
very
stuff-
early before.
His
yeah.
stuff is in public
These-
domain.
Since the 60s, yeah.
Oh,
'Cause
so his stuff
Disney
doesn't get,
didn't
so like no one's profiting off of it. That
Yep,
shit.
No.
absolutely.
Oh, okay. Well, then that makes
But
it
he,
fine.
but he died penniless.
I mean,
Yeah.
yes, he should.
And racist.
I bet
Yep.
his cat has all the money.
He was morally and financially bankrupt. Dancing on someone's grave.